Do. That should be going live. Now we wait to hear my voice to make sure it's all working okay. Is that ChosenOne?
Hello?
Hey,
Hello.
ChosenOne.
Oh, wait a second. Why is my not working? Just a second.
No, I can hear you.
Oh.
I could hear him.
Yeah, I could hear him too. We are currently live, so I will just do the little intro ditty while we wait for ChosenOne to come back. What is up, YouTube land, my millions of followers? It looks like we have 700,000 people watching right now, which is a little low. We can get those numbers up. We are here today with Hadres and ChosenOne, two excellent Skaven mains who I watched through Turin's channel for about 3 or 4 months, learning how to play Skaven through their builds. And it is a sincere pleasure to have them here today. We have Hadres. ChosenOne is currently working on some mic issues. Hadres, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well and hoping that ChosenOne can get back in here with us. I need him to lessen the load.
Yeah. I'm also currently at 313 subscribers, which is a important number for this.
It's a very lucky number.
It was 11 last night, so we bumped it up perfectly. I suppose I could ask you some Hadres-specific questions while we wait for ChosenOnes.
Which ones are those?
XMT Way asked... Oh, ChosenOne?
Yep. Hello.
ChosenOne!
Hello!
Yep.
You good? You can hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. I've had some weird technical issues when my browser Discord didn't work while my application finally works.
Gotcha. Well, if anyone in the chat has problems hearing either of them, I can bump up or down their volumes with ease. With both of you here, ChosenOne, let's ask you first the same question I ask every time. Best and worst 3 matchups for Skaven in your opinion, and we'll see if Hadres and I have any different thoughts.
Well, the worst 3 would be Wood Elves, Beastmen, and probably Chaos.
Those are my exact 3.
I tend to agree. Yeah, for the most part, it's those. And it's kind of surprising that no undead show up in that list, but I also agree with it. Yeah.
It's pretty concise. What about the best
VC
3?
can be a bit of a pain if they know what they're doing.
Definitely. Vampire counts are a lot of pain if they know how to play it. Same goes for Greenskins as well.
Yeah, Greenskins is pretty tough. I'm glad you say that, 'cause some RTK players say, no, Greenskins is easy, and then I keep losing it, and I feel bad. What are the best 3, are we thinking?
And
Well, of
Dwarves
course.
is a given.
Dwarves, yeah. The good matchups are kind of limited, I believe, so Lizardmen still might be up there.
Possibly, yeah.
And
Lizardmen.
I guess either Bretonia or maybe Dark Elves.
I would think Bretonia maybe more than Dark Elves. Now that the AoE bug is fixed.
Yeah. I've actually been struggling a lot against recent Lizardmen because of Oxyotl poking down my Grayseer. He can do a lot of damage to the Bell, and that used to be kind of your only saving grace, is that the Bell wouldn't die. It isn't a bad matchup, but it went from being relatively easy to being about 50-50 for me, but that just might be my play style.
No, I think it's quite 50-50, but, you know, for Skaven, 50-50 is one of their best matchups.
Yeah. I will say that Torx the Brass Bull made the Beastman matchup even harder because my old strategy was just to Liber Burbonicus, the Beastman Lord, and then double Assassin Snipe him. But if he pops Brass Body, he can waste half that damage from the Liber, and he can actually beat both Assassins 1v2.
Mm-hmm. Even without Brass Body, his 130 armor gives the assassins a lot of trouble. And Skaven have always had issues with, like, they can nuke down one target pretty well, but they can't handle just a rush of a bunch of single entities with good health pools and terror.
Hmm.
And the addition of the really good chariots and the manticores really didn't help either.
Oh, Manticores. Every matchup that they can, I always see two. They're a joy. And summons. Basically, a game without Manticores as Skaven is a treat.
Yeah, it really is.
Which is actually one of the reasons I've been liking the High Elf matchup so much, because they can't summon them. They summon eagles. That just makes it infinitely more playable, in my opinion. So we all agreed that Wood Elves is a bad matchup, but Complex Slayer is asking, what do you take if you get stuck with it? Skaven versus Wood Elves, roughly what's your plan? Let's start with Hadres.
Yeah, I'm loading that up now.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got basically a Deathmaster with his full kit and an assassin buddy with him. So with them, you want to find and hunt down the Waste Stalkers. So basically, what you do is you have at least 4 slaves, and you fan them out to both to body block, but also to spot the Waste Stalkers. And once you have that, you want to assassinate at least one Waste Stalker with the Deathmaster and the assassin. Aside from that, you got a Plague Priest for summons. With the Plague Priest, I just say get as many summons out as you can before he gets sniped. I can't find a better use of magic. Like maybe the Eshin Sorcerer, if you want to try to play a long game with his throwing Warp Stars snipe. That can be nice, but I don't know. I like the summons.
Bell or no bell for him?
No bell, just on foot. So yeah, like I said, 4 slaves. After that, 2 Clan Rat Spears and the Clan Vulcan Tail Slashers. They're just bodies, but the Tail Slashers are actually okay in combat versus Dryads. I guess you could call it a curveball pick is a Plague Monk Sensor Bearer way in the back, in deep reserves in case I need something with decent magic damage, and they'll kill any Dryads that break through the front line. 4 Night Runners as also a kind of a front line, but they can eat shots, dodge, shoot at birds and any incoming cavalry. I got 1 Gutteroda with poison to support them, and 3 Poison Wind Globadiers because I'm actually surprised. I thought I had 4, but yeah, I guess I got 3, and they're just plain good. And the Avalanche Mortars.
Yeah, Avalanche Mortars, let's go! I love those guys.
Avalanche Mortars, if I think you've seen a couple of games where they just nuke down the Sylvan Knights if they get a shot in, and in general, they're pretty dangerous to the elves. So you just got to make sure you keep them alive while you're managing everything. It's a really hard matchup, and it's a really hard army to make work, but I think it's got the best chance.
Mm-hmm.
I know. What do you think, ChosenOne?
I would play very, very similar thing. I think I would switch the Avalanche Mortars for Wolf Rats, at least like 4 of them I have. 2 with the magical damage, because you simply need something to stop the Sylvan Knights if they are here. And they can be useful even against the archers, just being annoying because they're fast enough to run away even from the Wild Riders.
Mm-hmm.
But very similar thing, Gutter Runners with Night Runners. The exact same infantry corps. I have 2 Red Ogres just for the mass, because something needs to stop the Wild Riders. And You can pick Poison Wind Mortars or Poison Wind Globadiers. But yeah, it's a very tough matchup. Assassins, you need to go for the Waste Walkers, but if the Wood Elf player defends them well enough, then the Assassins are kind of in big trouble. And the Waste Walkers will just kill your Lord almost no matter who it is. So you need to waste the summon Searly, which you usually don't want. So yeah, very troublesome.
I have a slightly different build. It's usually double Poison Wind Mortar, and then 6 Wolf Rats, 4 with Poison, 2 with Magic damage, and then I give the 2 with Magic damage up to single Silver Chevrons just for some leadership, because I find they terror out less, and I know I'm going to be sprinting them into Lost Sylvan Knights. My Lords vary depending on the map, but Deathmaster is usually pretty good, just because he's invisible and he can't get sniped at a range by Arrows of Kurnos. An Assassin, and a Plague Priest on foot, just because, again, Arrows of Kurnos do less damage to him. And after that, fill with Chaff. But it's been a tough matchup. I haven't won it very often, so I would probably go with the other 2 builds mentioned here. They're probably better. I'll have to try Night Runners. Haven't really tried them in that matchup.
You should. So they're not going to like melt a Dryad front line, but the fact that they do like poke it down, and combined with Poison Wind Globe Fire, the Dryads get attritioned out, and you don't have to waste your Avalanche Mortar shots on them. So it's nice that way.
We have a couple of questions coming in the YouTube chat. I will try to balance focusing on the questions asked beforehand, but we'll knock these out really quick. David the White Lizard's asking, which Skaven Legendary Lord do you both think is best? Like, not your favorite, but the best.
My favorite is also the one I think is the best, Deathmaster. Like you mentioned earlier, it's just because he's invisible, does good damage. The scaling damage stat is really nice. Thing is, you say Legendary Lord, and that eliminates the Gracier Plague Bell man, and so yeah, for me it's Deathmaster.
Yeah, the Legendary Lords eliminates unfortunately what is the best Lord for Skaven, but I believe it's close call between Lord Skrolk and Deathmaster Snitch when it comes purely on Legendary Lords. But if we add the existence of Gracier, then it's probably Snitch, because Skrolk unfortunately is weaker than the Gracier of Plague.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the question was Legendary Lord specific, because the easy answer is the Gracier on the bell. I would also go Deathmaster, because ChosenOne kind of alluded to it, but Skrolk would only be better than Deathmaster if you didn't have a Gracier option. Because if you just wanted your caster to be your Lord, then of course Skrolk. But there is a better choice than Skrolk in most cases, sitting right next to him.
The funny thing is, when I take Skrolk, I usually take him without spells and just his items, and then I get a Plague Furnace, Mortis Engine caster. So that way, if they want to snipe my caster, they're not going to snipe my Lord, and Skrolk can do his, his Lieber One-Shoticus thing and just debuff the front line.
Yeah. I do like Lieber One-Shoticus against a few factions where they don't have healing and they rely on their lords, Dark Elves. That can be pretty nice.
Ooh, actually, I see Evangy, the best looking Legendary Lord, is also Deathmaster. Have you seen his abs?
He does have good abs. So Deadly Bunny's asked a question that I've talked about on stream a couple times, but again, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on it because I've struggled so much with the matchup. Skaven mains always say the Chaos matchup is hard. Deadly Bunnies is wondering why, because when he plays it as Chaos, it doesn't feel very easy. And what I've said on stream about it, I'm curious what your thoughts are, is it feels a little bit like build roulette sometimes, where if you know Sigvald's coming, Deathmaster or Queek can take care of him pretty easily. But if you know Sartorial's coming, you need an entirely different idea, because you need to spread out and not group up. Or if Archaon's coming, Burning Head's tricky, and it's like Chaos Spawn are good, Manticores are good, Forsaken are good. It's just you don't know what's coming because Chaos feels like they have a lot of good tools, and therefore you're kind of on the back foot, is what I feel about that.
I would agree with that. Like, you have many options what you can pick. You have spawns that are good against Skaven, Manticore, good against Skaven. A lot of the cheaper infantry is all very cost effective against Skaven. Of course, not the great weapons. But even the KFC is very good against Skaven.
I would say actually Sigvald feels well. Skaven are always going to be ready for Sigvald. At least all of my builds are, and to me, Sigvald is kind of almost a trap for Chaos in that matchup. I think KFC, yeah, Sartorial is the way to go all the time. Skaven don't really have a choice when it comes to grouping up because of how, you know, their leadership works and how their speed. Skaven kind of naturally form a blob where that's where Final Transmutation just drops them down. So yeah, no, I think Sartorial is the way, and when Chaos doesn't take him, it's Skaven have a much better time in that matchup, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I haven't worried about Archaon much, just because I always take the cannon.
Oh,
the zap. Yeah, zap. That's the other thing. When we're talking about Skaven matchups, I've always felt that Skaven is the most map-dependent faction in the game, where it's just such a extreme difference in matchup viability when they can take zap and when they can't, when there's like flat ground for them to fight on, or if it's hills. So you gotta take that into account when we're talking about what's a good and bad matchup.
Yeah, if they want to play you on MP Crossroads, I would probably be happy as Skaven, but usually there's some forest or hills to protect the Chaos advance. Usually. There was a question in chat. Oops, where are you? From Jeffroy Mail, but I'm also going to lump in a question that was asked earlier from Dialatron. Is Throt the Unclean good anymore? Let's start with ChosenOne.
Throt the Unclean, well, he's pretty expensive, and because you also need to take a Plague Priest, and you most likely gonna put him on the Plague Furnace, you are spending around maybe close to 4k on your leadership, and that's already quite a lot for Skaven, I feel. And he's not that impressive, actually. Like, the Brood Horrors after the nerfs are definitely not performing as they used to. And even before, he was very strong, but I never felt like he was the most OP thing I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Definitely not the current Fey Enchantress, current Morathi levels. And I kind of feel that the regular Warlord, if you put him on the Brood Horror for around 1300, he would be almost 1000 cheaper. It's kind of similar, and not like in the output, but if you consider that you also have 1000 gold extra, it's not so bad. So
yeah, Morathi costs 200 gold less than Throt.
Ew. But yeah, that's I pretty much agree. The Warlord on his Brutar. I don't even think the nerfs hit the Warlord.
No, he has more armor.
Yeah, he has more armor.
The stats might have not, but the mass definitely did.
Oh, the mass, sure, but I actually take the Warlord with Verminous Valor for the already insane speed boosts on top of it, and the explosion he can get out of just about anything. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, I like the Warlord is a good combat lord if you want to take him. Yeah, he's fine.
Now, someone asked about the Skaven Warlord. It was Real Human Being. I don't take him in any matchup. I acknowledge he's fine, but I never think he's the best option. Is there actually a build either of you, like, not every single game, every matchup, but is there a matchup you frequently take him in? Let's start with Hadres.
Empire. I've had success with him in versus Empire. He's a check against Volkmar. Like he can beat him or hunt him down, cycle charge him specifically. And if it's something like Marcus, he'll run in and just beat him down. Let's see, what other matchup? You could make an argument for him. It depending on what you're doing. So if you're trying a kite, if you're going for like a kite build versus Norska, Warlord can be nice there.
That's a good idea. That's the last matchup I still take Throt, and it's just because he's so good at dealing with skin wolves.
Mm-hmm.
I might just need to take the regular Brood Horror, just because it's more about the terror and regen than it is about Throt
Yeah, and
specifically.
you pay 1,000 gold less, and honestly, with that, you can like Throt lets you summon rat ogres. Why not just save money and get an extra unit of rat ogres? There you get a permanent unit of rat ogres for taking the warlord.
That is a really good idea.
Yep, unfortunately for a lot of these Skaven lords, their non-legendary lord option is often the same good or maybe even better than the legendary lord. And yeah, I would agree in Empire, but last time I played against like 3 pistol leaders and it game ended with like 1 pistol leader against warlord, and yeah, his 60 armor didn't carry.
But you could get the item with the one-time buff of 60 armor.
For a minute. I mean, the minute isn't bad, but yeah, you kind of wish it was more.
Armor isn't the most important stat in the game, even. Like, a Dread Saurian has all the armor in the world and still gets taken out. I love how a lot of the Skaven items are not ideal. Anyway. Sorry for that distraction.
So yeah, Empire, you can maybe pick this against Tomb Kings if you go the monster mesh, but I think there are better plays against Tomb Kings, but if you want to have fun, why not? And yeah, that's about it.
Now, did you guys watch my video about the pipes of Piebald? It's okay if you say no.
No, what is that?
It's the Plague Priest item that gives your opponents almost 100% bonus on their charge speed.
Yeah, I know about it from like the moment I opened the game. I saw it. I saw the dwarf sprinting after my bell, and that was sad. That's really.
It's the only optional item in the game that buffs your opponents more than helps you, and I don't know why they did that.
That's pretty funny. I'm pretty sure it wasn't like that before.
No, it was -7 or -8, one of the two, on both, and then they rounded everything to 10s with the last patch, and then I don't know what the fuck happened, but they turned that into a positive instead of a negative, and 95. It's with this patch. I don't know why they did that, but...
Okay, so it is new. I knew his item was useless, but now it's less than useless.
Yeah, so ChosenOne mentioned, if you're like routing and there's just basic dwarf warriors or anything trying to chase you, if they start their charge animation, it'll be twice as fast, allowing infantry to actually catch up to him and keep hitting him. It's like, why? Why would I ever take this?
For the lulls.
For the lulls, to flex. Alright. Speaking of the lulls, let's get this out of the way. Ilmatar, and I'm sure half of the community ask, would Tretch be good with AP and Dwarven Mass? Let's start with ChosenOne.
No. No, just no.
Just no.
Because he still would fly around like an idiot. Completely useless. He can't hit thing now, so if he has AP, wouldn't have been better. And the other lords would still be much better. Deadmaster Snitch be still much better. Even Scroll would be much better. The Bell would obviously be much, much better. He would be quick with more mass and anti-large, okay. And 3,000, 1,200 HP. Just
Yeah.
no.
He's gonna get like 3 Spirit Leeches and be done. That's it. Or Overcast a Fireball or 2.
Yeah, you'd have to be pretty generous with Tretch to make him like an option. So the list of like necessary buffs would be AP, better mass, Lucky Skullhelm like remove the losing in melee combat active thing and just make it like an item like Grom or Brass Body where you just pop it for the 40 damage resist, because it's 40 now. 40% ward save and speed is okay, but it's only active when he's losing, which, okay, maybe that's a lot, but point is, yeah, no, just remove that condition, maybe like 5 melee attack, and you'd be somewhere.
Yeah. I think
But yeah, no, he just needs like a litany of buffs.
the biggest problem for him is that he's a lord specifically designed around like making a weird elite infantry box that wins in combat, but like Skaven don't have any infantry that win in combat. And especially how Total War seems to calculate winning in combat, I find Storm Vermin fighting like skeleton warriors say they're even in melee combat often, and then they don't get the Treacherous Raiders buff. And it's like, well, if your whole kit is designed around Skaven infantry beating the shit out of everyone else's infantry, that's not a good kit. We have the worst infantry in the game. And like, that's our faction design. I'm not complaining about it, but it's just weird. I don't know. I'd like it if he gave, instead of like all this winning or losing in combat shit, if he just gave like flat buffs to stuff around him like Azhag does. And then you could maybe make like Storm Vermin and Cloud Rats good. But with all these if and or whens, it's just not very good. Real Human Being asked the Lord, both of you have already kind of answered one half of, what is the most niche Lord, meaning good but only in a certain situation, and most flexible? All three of us answered the most flexible is the Grey Seer on a Bell, so we're going to just roll past that. Hadres, who's the most niche Lord? Good, but only occasionally.
That would be Queek.
Not the answer I expected, but the answer I love. Why?
His niche is dwarves and Sigvald. If you are fighting dwarves or Sigvald, Queek will win the game for you. If you're not fighting those things, then he's out of his niche. No.
Exactly. Queek is really good against dwarves, actually. That's like, no joke, no meme. He's really good. But against everything else, basically, just don't pick him, ever. If you are in a competitive game, obviously, like, if you want to pick him against Chaos, as mentioned, and you can hope it's Sigvald, then yeah, fair enough for you if it really is Sigvald. But if it's not, then if it's KFC, then you're gonna lose.
Yeah.
That's it.
I've unfortunately tested that. With an overcasted final trans, Sartorial can rout Queek in melee combat even with all the debuffs. It's just because he's terror causing, and he doesn't need to hit his melee attack to knock Queek over, which is the biggest problem. So most of your debuff you're going to spend on the floor. My personal answer was going to be Ikit Claw. I've recently been having some success with him on his Doom Wheel versus Vampire counts in like a full kite with him and the Wheels of Doom, and then a bunch of Gutter Runners, Night Runners, Poison Wind Mortars, but they rotate, some Slingers, shit like that. So I've been having some fun with that.
I don't know if, well, Ikit, I don't even call him niche. Ikit is almost good. Like, you just have to build around a specific style, which is, yeah, a bunch of Gutter Runners, Doom Wheels, and you just kind of kite and shoot with Ikit. And yeah, I mean, that's his style. I just don't see a lot of Skaven playing it because there's more tried and true methods. But like, every time I see Falcon playing Skaven, he uses Ikit. That's just because the Storm Demon on a side shot can delete like a unit of Minotaurs for free.
Yep. My issue with Ikit Claw is his miscast chance on his unlimited power item.
I was just about to say that.
That's so much HP of a Doom Wheel that has, wait, how much is it? It's 4,100 HP, and he can get up to like 500, even 700 if you're a little unlucky in one game. And I personally prefer to take Warlock Master if I ever go for Doom Wheel Lord.
Really?
Just because of that. Yeah, the Arcane Conduit gives you the same magic, basically the same magic. And if the game is really long, it can make a difference. Even if he's weaker, he's also a little bit cheaper.
And he has the Wand of Jet, so he has 2 different mana increasing items.
Yep.
Huh.
I mean, his Icket Claw is obviously cooler, and he has the Storm Demon. But if you rely on unlimited power not killing you, I'm not a big fan of that.
Yeah. I just realized that Icket Claw's Doomwheel mount is 550, but the Warlock Master's is 800. I think with everything you just said, the Warlock Master would actually be very competitive if his Doomwheel mount was just as cheap as Icket's. Because looking at his powers are pretty good. Wand of Jet's very good. Brass Orb is but I can cut it and save 100 gold. He could be an interesting mana battery where you just take Howling Morpgale on him, and then you have a Plague Caster or something. But
That's what I would play, yeah.
just a little bit cheaper, but all right.
It's like 100 gold cheaper, maybe. You would, of course, pick the Brass Orb off, so maybe even 250 gold cheaper.
Oh man,
And
if Doomflare was good. If only.
If only.
Real Human Being asks Snicked, when is he good and how to use him? Do you take Spinning Blades? We kind of talked about Snicked already. We do think he's good. He's one of the better non-Gracier Lords, so I'm going to bypass that question. But we did talk about it. And yes, take Spinning Blades.
I would mention, yes, Spinning Blades is one of those things where you have games where you take it and you kind of win without needing to use it, but then you also get those games in the late game where Snicked is surrounded and you think, damn, if only I took Whirl Weeping Blades. So take it, for sure.
It's expensive, very expensive, but yeah, I agree. Just take it.
I recently started taking it, but for the longest time I played without it because it's 230 gold and I rarely needed it. But you're right, when you do need it, it can win you a whole game, so it's best to take it.
And you can even in early game just run into unit of whatever, like swordsman, and it puts them like half HP almost. And you can just run straight through them to where you want to run, to the casters, to the lords. So yeah, it's pretty good.
I accidentally put What is Love in the Lords category. That's supposed to be in the memes, but I'm reading it right now. So Real Human Being, what is love? Love is Skaven. Is XMT Way and No Cane No Gain asked, is Snitch better than Queek in 100% of matchups or in 100% of builds? His stat line is well known as the Sigval Slayer, but his debuff is very underrated. I mean, Queek's better in Dwarves, but Snitch still works there. Is there anywhere else Queek would be better?
I'd argue Queek is much better. Like with Snicked, you're kind of taking a risk taking him into Dwarves because his 30 armor will let him down when, say, Belagar decides to give him a slap. Queek doesn't care.
Yeah, I would agree. Queek, I believe, is much better. Also, his item, if you lose the assassin, minus 40 melee defense. It's really strong if he's on his own in the late game.
Yeah. He can.
And of course,
sorry, you go.
The rest of the matchups, Dredge.
Oh,
sorry, Snicked.
I was just gonna go with Dredge. This last one, I have a factual answer. Real Human Being asked, is Queek more of a Chad than Grimgor? No. Bobman and I tested Grimgor beats Queek, and the only thing Queek's supposed to be good at. So, no, Grimgor wins. I tried.
He's the biggest and the bestest.
He's the biggest, the brightest. Oh, let's go to our pro-specific questions before we get into units. And ChosenOne, I mentioned to Hadres before the interview, but you were in and out for a little bit. If you have to go at any point during the interview, just feel free to go. It's a very chill atmosphere. You don't have to stay if you don't want to. Or if you have to go to bed or something. I know it's later for you.
No, it's fine. It's 9:30. I can be here as long as you want me to be.
Good. All right. Hadres, this one is for you from Way. Did Skaven win 3 faction wars mostly because they're A, flexible, B, you cheesed your opponents, 3, your micros and your builds, or all of the above?
Oh, definitely all of the above. You got to cheese your opponent. you got to be flexible, and whatever that third thing was.
Build and micro, I think. Just
Yeah,
scale.
sure. But yeah, no, Skaven were like for those three. Well, no, there was back and forth. So it was Skaven one, then Coast one, because there was that was the Coast meta. Then I think there was a Lizardman, then Skaven again. It was just kind of bouncing around for which faction was winning there. But yeah, it was like trading off between Coast and Skaven for a bit. So that was fun.
ChosenOne, do you regret your name choice after hearing the same joke 500 times?
ChosenOne!
ChosenOne!
No, I don't think I would regret anything. It's quite funny. I can't deny that. It wasn't my first idea about the name originally, but then I was kind of, yeah, I don't care, why not?
For each of you, we'll start with ChosenOne. From Real Human Being, what is your favorite thing about Skaven?
My personal favorite lord is Lord Skrolk. I think he's like the coolest lord in the game, and very cool lore, etc. And about the faction, I quite always liked to play defensively with the sales when they came out finally. I like the aesthetic, but if I can say what I don't like, I don't like their over the lines on the defense. Like sometimes going crazy attack could be better. I would like to have some more mobility.
Hadres, what's your favorite thing about Skaven?
Well, for me, what he said about Skrolk works for me, except for Deathmaster Snikch. He is my favorite lord, thematically, lore-wise, but also just his play style. When you use Deathmaster correctly, it really translates that you're using an assassin, not a duelist, not a monster hunter or whatever. He's exclusively an assassin, and you have to play him like it. Because he cannot take a hit. He'll probably lose the duel to a Bastiladon. But yeah, for assassination, for just getting in there at the right moment, getting the hits in and dealing thousands of damage, that's what I love about him. The other thing I like about Skaven is, yes, defensive play, but they're not hold the line defensive. They are, let's sacrifice a bunch of slaves, clan rats, and summons defensive, and they'll all die horribly while we do what we need to do to win. And I really like that. Is my preferred defensive style. That's why Skaven slaves are really interesting as a unit, because they are fast enough that you can position them where you need to kind of mold the battlefield as you need to, but they're also like cheap enough that you can afford to lose them, so you can body block in a lot of creative ways with Skaven slaves in ways that you can't with, say, zombies, because zombies are just too slow to do that. So yeah, interesting defensive formations.
I entered the game as a Lizardman main because I was a filthy campaign player and I like big dinosaurs. But after 2 or 3 campaigns of just hearing nothing but guttural growling, I finally tried Skaven because I had played Vermintide. And they just made me laugh so much during the campaign that I kind of fell in love with them. And I picked Queek as my favorite lord just because I read his books and I think he's well written and hilarious, because you can, you never tell during the whole books whether he means to do what he's doing or whether everything's a happy accident, but he keeps you guessing. And it was a great book. If you haven't read Head Taker, I highly recommend it because it's just great. So I love Queek. And then I started playing multiplayer with Skaven, even though they're a hard faction, and I lost like a million games in a row while learning them. But yeah, I don't regret it at all. Skaven are great.
They got personality.
They do. Like, man, Lizardmen look cool, but after a while you're like, Every unit I click on just screams at me. I kind of like words. This question's for you two and not for me. Hank Cyrus asks, what is the probability of Skaven winning a faction war in this patch? ChosenOne first.
Not great, but obviously depends who's playing. With the faction wars, I believe it's quite a bit about the matchup you get. Like if you get first round Beastman and the Beastman player is capable, then yeah, you are in like tons of trouble. Like you can do whatever, and if the Beastman player plays it right, you most likely lose.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's not good, but it's definitely possible.
I agree. The chances aren't great. You need to get a little lucky with the brackets. And, well, the thing is, though, in Faction War, when Turin does let you, like, soft ban or just ban a matchup that you do not want to get in round 1, no guarantee that you won't get it in round 2 if the bracket plays out that way, but, like, Turin does let you ban for the first match in Faction War.
Also, another trouble, I believe,
secret.
Hadres also mentioned it already, is the map, the huge map dependency that Skaven have.
Yeah, that's
and
correct.
if you get unlucky with the map Turin gives you, then okay, you can be in big trouble just because you play on the poor map.
If my memory is correct, Castle Drakenhof in particular is a map that, for my style of Skaven, it's a rough go.
Yeah, I dislike Castle Drakenhof with almost every faction.
I haven't played on it in a very long time. I'm going to load it up now and take a look.
Yeah, it just causes a lot of problems for my Skaven.
And it used to be very popular for some time.
Oh, this map. Yeah, this one's a bit tricky.
And I like most people will see what I'm talking about when I say that like Skaven is the most map dependent faction. They really it's not even that they're weaker, it's just that certain builds get locked out and then you have to go weird. Like one of the strengths of Skaven is that after all the DLC, they are technically versatile. So you can create a number of unique builds. It's just hard to find what's most optimal. And what's most optimal is usually favored by a flat map. That's just how it is.
Yeah. It was asked in the chat and in the pre-made questions. There it is. Real Human Being and Chasing Rainbows ask, is there any faction that is even nearly as cool or as good as Skaven? Which essentially means, what is each of your second favorite factions? ChosenOne?
Dark Elves.
Dark Elves.
All right.
Yeah, it's Dark Elf.
Probably not right now, because all the Dark Elves do in the competitive meta right now is Morathi Blob, with assassins blobbing on themselves as well, and Scourge Runner spam. And okay, it's not the most fun thing, but when I started playing, it was very different from now. It was a lot of Cold One Knights, Scourge Runners weren't even there.
I miss Malekith.
Dragons. Exactly. Malekith was so cool.
Malekith is, yeah, he's, if it wasn't, like, Malekith is my second favorite lord next to Deathmaster, and they switch places every once in a while, because, yeah, Malekith is just my favorite. He's so great.
All of his items suck, dude.
Yeah, they do.
They're so bad.
Gaze of Malice is not bad.
Yeah, that's an ability, though. His items are all, like, 200 gold. And
yeah, the items are trash.
Like, they wouldn't be bad if they weren't so expensive. That's the thing. But they're just... 200 gold for a 15-second ability recharge on your opponents. Ooh, spooky. I don't know. My second favorite... For the longest time, it was Dwarves, but the more I play the game, the more I get bored with the Dwarven playstyle. So thematically, I still like Dwarves second most, but recently, probably High Elves. I've been really enjoying High Elves, Phoenixes. Phoenixes in particular are just super fun. As I indicated with my Lizardman thing, I'm actually a big monster player. I just play Skaven because I like them thematically, but if the Clan Molder monsters were OP, that'd be my playstyle every single game. I love monsters. All right. Jeremy asks, I'm bad at Skaven. How do I get better? So if each of you had one tip to give a brand new player who wanted to play Skaven, what would it be? Hadres?
You like definitely play practice games, learn to like a general piece of advice would be use your summons early as blocker, right? So get in an early summon, have it run into your opponent's approaching line, and that'll delay part of it. But more importantly, if all of your magic is in summoning, you do want to get some out early so that in the late game when you recharge your magic, you use it all. What I mean is if you just hold on to 30 winds of magic for the whole time waiting for like the best time to do a summon, then by the end of the game, you probably won't have used all of your magic pool. Mm-hmm. So that's why I use early summons a lot to hold up my opponent's front line and get some shots in that way. Otherwise, yeah, just watch games like a Turin's channel, Human Boy's channel, and look for successful builds that they use. What else? Understand that in a map where you can take Ikit Zap, you should. It's like one of the best RORs in the game for multiplayer and for Skaven in particular. Like if your opponent's caster is large or on a mount or even just on foot and annoying, the Ikit Zap will basically deny them a caster for the entire game if the map allows. So embrace Ikit Zap, I'd say.
Yeah, it is a really, really good artillery piece. ChosenOne?
For me, I would say the advice would be just know what you're trying to do. Like with Skaven, if you want to play defensively, then you need to have at least something to be sure that your opponent is actually coming at you and not just picking you apart from far away. So therefore, picking Nati Bubo's sharpshooters often is not a bad pick. And if you can combine them, or the Ikit Zap Zap is what mentioned, which is also very good, with Poison with Globadiers, probably the best unit on the roster, cost-effective wise. And just don't be afraid to play Skaven Slaves. I know they seem like bad, especially if you are a beginner in multiplayer. They seem to lose like in few seconds, and they actually do. But in those few seconds, you can throw one or two volleys for Globadiers, and that's how you need to play.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing for me is watching people who are good at Skaven and steal their builds. A bad build with any faction, but especially a faction as punishing on mistakes as Skaven, if you have a bad build, the game is just going to feel really bad, and you won't be able to learn much from it because it ends so quickly with a bad Skaven build that you don't even know what you did wrong.
Yeah, I will say you can't be too nice or too memey with Skaven. You like it was asked earlier, you win faction war by cheesing. Yeah, you do. you goddamn right you do.
Yep. With Skaven, especially right now, you can't afford to play an unoptimal build if you want to win, at least sometimes. You really need to play the absolute best what you can do.
This was a long question, but I like the conversation behind it. Killing Smalls asks, I feel that Skaven gets underrated in its difficulty to play. To those who feel skill capped at the race, what types of things could they possibly need to work on to increase the skill cap? Like, besides just, hey, I have Skaven Slaves and Poison Wind, what would you guys say keeps you coming back to Skaven? Because in case that question was a little convoluted, my thing I've been trying to do with Skaven recently is there's so many units I don't use at all, and I've recently been coming around to Night Runners and Gutter Runners, in a lot of builds. And Hadres mentioned earlier that Night Runners are in his Wood Elf build. I really haven't used them much, and I'm finding they're very good. I'm also starting to experiment with purple globes against armored cav, but there's just so many units, so I think the skill cap would be really learning every single unit on the roster, not just the basic kit. But any other thoughts, Chosen One?
For me, it would be try to learn how to dominate your flanks with the combination of gutter runners and wolf rats, with, let's say, slight support of red ogres if really needed. And that's about it. Also, like, if you consider the mortar kite to be a thing, which I believe it can be, if you know what Alfredino, my clanmate, used to play, let's say against Falcon, if you remember the game, then that seems quite easy to play, but it's really difficult with to kite with mortar unit that's just 38 speed. And it's very strong. It's one of the better tactics if you don't want to just box. It's like an option that you can play to have at least more versatile playstyle.
For me, well, for units that I want to play with more or to use more, that would be the Eshin Triads. I think that depending on your build, an Eshin Triad just like stealth on the side or using it as a cavalry trap can be interesting. There's things I want to try with that. You're right, there are so many options with Skaven that it takes a lot of game knowledge and experience to really get all of the units down. Like, ever since the Broodhar nerf, I've kind of been mixing in mutant rat ogres just because, you know, they're the next cheapest thing that also work as far as monsters go. As for like skills to develop in while you're playing Skaven, I'd say map awareness is a big one. You know, Skaven aren't all that quick, even if you have wolf rats, I guess, but that's even more important then to know what's coming for your wolf rats or where they have to go. And so map awareness, knowing what's on the mini map or what might come. And that's like while you're arranging like a defensive line or actually commanding your army, you also need to pay attention to like the map, the mini map, what's behind you, all that. So it's something to work on.
Vanguard is not usually your friend.
Yeah, no. That's the other thing, yeah, with wolf rats, you don't really send them on deep Vanguard suicide missions. You kind of start wolf rats in your own army, and they're just like a fast unit that can chase or flank, but you usually don't send them on deep Vanguard suicide missions. They just route too fast.
Torax is faster than I thought he was. Holy shit, he's catching these gutter runners.
It's that charge animation of his. I've seen him leap over a unit of questing knight to attack the Fae. I mean, like Olympian jump over the unit of questing knights to get at the Fae. It was amazing.
He is hard to pin down with those damn animations. That's enough of these for now. We'll scroll up to some of the more meta unit questions. Why were all the fun Twisted in the Twilight units nerfed unfairly before Poison Wind Globes were? Cry is free. Let's go with Hadres. I think we started with ChosenOne last time.
I mean, the thing is, Poison Wind Globes, the 550 ones weren't even touched, so ha 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 ha. But yeah, Poison Wind Mortars got nerfed. The Twisted and Twilight units, I think Broodhars were probably over nerfed, or they were nerfed in the wrong way. Like 10 melee defense off a monster unit, they're irrelevant. Add on top of that the price increase, and like people were complaining about their speed. I was thinking they were going to lose 10 speed, instead they lost 10 melee defense. Fuck, man. So yeah, that's not great. Aside from that, what else was nerfed from Twisted and Twilight? Because
Wolf rats.
yeah, wolf rats. I mean, they're still fast. They still do what you need them to do. I'm actually okay with that, just because I don't notice it that much. I know they still work the same way. But yeah, no, the Brood Horror nerf basically made them irrelevant. Like I said earlier, Mutant Rat Ogres might work. They didn't get nerfed because they weren't really that special to begin with. But now that Brood Horrors are worse, you kind of got to consider them. And yeah, they can be okay. Chieftains, Packmasters. I don't see Packmasters that often, but I guess, yeah, when it comes to Brood Horrors, the only ones you do see are Packmasters and Throt or Warlord. What else from Twist and Twilight? I don't remember. The roster's
I think
so
that
big.
was literally.
Is that it?
It was the Brood Horrors, Wolf Rats, Mutant Rat Ogres, Chieftain, Packmaster. I think you got them all. And
Oh,
Throt,
shit.
But
Yeah.
Chieftain didn't get nerfed. He just never was that good. He's niche, but he was never that good. Bonebreaker's good, but
Bonebreaker, yeah.
I think the Packmaster. I mean, he got the nerfs that the Brood Horror got, but most of his stuff is to buff monsters. When the monsters all got nerfed, why would you take the monster buffer?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can still even I'm sure there's a question about it here, but like Rat Ogres got dinged a little with the frenzy change.
I was
they're
so
worse
pissed
too.
about that. But yes, there is a question about that.
Yeah, but Chosen One, right? What's the?
Any thoughts on the Twist in the Twilight units all getting nerfed, but not Poison Wind?
To be honest, I never really understood why they nerfed anything before the Globadiers. I believe that the Poison Wind Globadiers was the best unit even before all the nerfs to everything else. And 550 gold, they kind of nerfed them as well because they nerfed Poison Wind by the damage output overall by, I don't know, 15-20%. So they nerfed even them, and they are still the best unit, and clearly right now the best unit on the roster. And Poison Wind Mortars, while are still good, many people would still tell me how they are crazy good or something like that. And I don't believe it's the case. I think they are just a good unit on the roster.
I agree.
Now, from Pug to Bone, what would you do to make Skaven less reliant on Poison Wind? Like if CA came to you two and was like, hey, we're going to nerf Poison Wind, what do you need to make this faction viable after we do that? Let's start with ChosenOne.
I believe if you make rattling guns usable, it would be very nice because they are kind of your natural counter to like monsters and manticores and stuff. And Skaven even before had have pretty good success to deal with infantry, but kind of struggled against the cheaper monsters and the spawns, chariots, etc. So definitely making rattling guns good would be nice. And I think the monsters needs buffs all over the place because everything that causes terror on Skaven roster is kind of mediocre right now. Maybe outside of the Warlord and Brood Horror or Packmaster and Brood Horror, they are
the
just
regular help hit is okay. Yeah,
the regular
right.
help hit is okay.
They're okay.
My problem with it is that the current meta just tells you to bring a lot of cheap skirmish, and a lot of cheap skirmish is just great against helpets.
I don't think a Poison Wind Globe nerf would like destroy Skaven, but like in exchange, what ChosenOne said, making rattling guns good, and I don't even know. I like rattling guns right now, but if you gave them, I'd say maybe some kind of buff, but also make it so that they don't care about friendly fire, and they can just shoot into slaves or through slaves. That'd be great. Give them some penetration.
Yeah, that's
really strong.
That's the biggest thing is that they're a good unit that's limited by like game mechanics, not stats.
Yeah, exactly. And the other one would be warp fire throwers. I think it would be huge if warp fire throwers got Arc of Fire, because they are so terrible with their direct, fire sight. If you just give them an Arc of Fire and let them do what they need to do, because I think Warp Fire Throwers have the damage potential, sure, but they refuse to shoot, like I said, through slaves. And if they just had an Arc of Fire, it would be so much better. The other thing I'd like is just reverse the Skaven slave price increase. I hate that. They went up by 25 gold each. That is so much money. Or it adds up to a lot of money.
Yeah. That's funny. That question is a little later, but yeah, we'll get there with that, but that wasn't what I was expecting. Yeah, for me, I mean, I mentioned it earlier, I'm a big Monsters Go Burr kind of player, so I would really prefer it if the monsters were good again. You can see on stream right now, the Warp Fire Throwers that aren't obstructed can fire, but there's one that's like plenty of distance behind its Skaven slaves, and it's just obstructed for the whole game. So Warp Fires can struggle. I would also ask that they get like a little bit of armor piercing damage, because I was playing against Energized in Anticity's tournament where you could ban 2 units from the enemy faction. And he picked Chaos, and he banned Poison Wind and Poison Wind mortars. And then I took Warp Fire Throwers because I thought they would deal with stuff, and he had triple Chosen, 0 damage. Warp Fires did 0 damage to Chosen, and I was just shooting them all day.
But you didn't take the purple ones.
I didn't. I thought Warp Fire Throwers did damage to...
He didn't ban the purple ones. You should have taken those.
Yeah. I definitely should have, but I was like, oh, these will take care of Forsaken and Marauder spam and all that stuff, and then he brought triple Chosen, and they just kept firing all day, and the Chosen laughed at me and slowly
they would do nothing. Yeah.
Oh, that was tough. All right. ChosenOne, we did bounce over to you. Good. All right. I could skip to that question since Hadres brought it up. From Cuden, should Skaven Slave's price be reverted before the nerf? Before the nerf, so 25 gold cheaper, or is it more balanced now? Hadres, you said you didn't like it. I actually thought that was a fair. I thought that was a fair nerf.
Yeah, I don't like it. It's so Skaven slaves are a unit. You take them to die, right? Mm-hmm. So when they increase the cost of Skaven slaves, yes, you're paying more for them, but the marauders that are killing your Skaven slaves for basically no effort are also getting more value, because like increasing their value just means that, yeah, you're paying more and your opponent gets more for killing them, which they were going to do anyway. So like that's rough. It's one of the reasons why like clan rats, I think in a lot of matchups you take a spam of them and then like 2 Skaven slaves just to have bodies on your flanks. But yeah, using Skaven slaves as like your primary front line is not really an optimal thing anymore, just because you're giving more value to your opponent by doing it.
For me, when I look at it, I don't think it's been necessarily a terrible change in case of balance, but it's bad when I look at vampire counts and Bretonnia, because zombies and the peasant mobs are 100 gold, and they have the same purpose. They are the same trash and melee, and they cost so much less. And yeah, that's a little bit annoying.
Yeah, I gotta say, when I saw the nerf and I just thought about the nerf back when it happened, I was perfectly okay with it. I'm like, that makes sense. Skaven slaves are really good. But then Cryas Free brought up to me that peasant mobs and zombies are both 100, and I was like, oh, wait, Skaven should definitely have the cheapest chaff in the whole game. Like, that's kind of, that's our thing. But now I wouldn't make Skaven slaves 75 gold or anything. I'm just saying maybe zombies and peasant mobs should cost a little bit more. But yeah. Another big, broad question. We'll start with ChosenOne. This is from me. How to make the Lore of Plague not the only the only Lord of Magic taken? So what would you do either to help Ruin and Stealth or to nerf Plague that we would see all three kind of equal amounts? ChosenOne.
Well, nerf Blake. If you nerf Vermintide or the 13 spell or even the Pestilent Birth, it's like their best three spells. That's how it is simply. And the other spells, like if you look at them, the Pestilent Breath has some uses, let's say against Vampire Ghost, and they have some it has some niche uses against some factions. The Blessed with Filth is pretty useless. I usually play at least with one Gutter Runner with poison, usually with two. So I have the poison anyway somewhere. Then you have Wither. That's minus armor, and that's like completely useless because your roster is one of the best at AP damage in the entire game. And okay, Plague is too expensive, I believe. It's not bad, but literally these Vortex spells are not the meta, and they won't be anytime soon. And when you look at the Lord of Ruin, there isn't the spell that would just carry you. That there is no wind spell. There is the Crack Skull, but again, it's good against armored targets, and that's not what you need. It's good against elite. You don't need that. You would need something like Burning Head that can just clear 2 cheaper units for less than 15 wins. And you have like 2 good spells. Howling Warp Gale, that's good against flyers. And Warp Lightning is not bad, not amazing. And okay, the current state of Lore of Stealth is just quite sad. You have the Warp Stars, okay, that's fair enough. But Skaven need all the bodies they can get. It's their playstyle, and if you can get more buddies with your magic, then you will. I imagine it could help that if you can bring more than 20 units in the field, so you can actually pick like 8 slaves, so it can help to the other magics because you have more buddies, so you don't have to summon them. But you need some serious buff on for this Ashen Sorcerer to be viable.
I'm just seeing how many clan rats and stuff I could actually field within fruit limits if you had 40 slots. And you could get a lot of bodies out there.
Oh yeah, no, that was so before Skaven got DLC or the big DLC. What I think it was my son HW did in his tournaments was he did allow over 20 unit cards, and that was mostly to the benefit of Skaven. And they could, bring basically big walls of chaff in addition to their usual stuff. That was pretty fun. If that happened now, I think Skaven would jump pretty well into in terms of power, like being allowed to bring 24 unit cards would be a pretty big benefit.
This is hilarious because this is I changed the funds 12,400, so this should be the banner amount of funds, and I could field like 30 units with like a not meme army.
No, get some more Poison Wind Globes and yeah.
That's
this
hilarious.
seriously looks like a good army.
Yeah.
Okay, and that I could go without Lore of Plague because then I couldn't even use more infantry if I had them.
That is the thing. The reason summons are so important for Skaven is because they need the bodies, and the limit of 20 cards doesn't really let you fill out the way that Skaven can with their funds and economy.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Also, as a side note, if you want to buff the Warlock Engineer, or as a caster, get rid of his weird Shadow Magnet trinket. The thing that gives missile parry with shield.
And he's not shielded.
Yeah, get rid of that and give him a Power Stone. He's a quote-unquote better caster. It pisses me off that the greenskin hag gets Power Stone in addition to all her things, and like, come on.
The Skaven items are, on their heroes especially, are famously terrible pretty much across the board. I don't know why they gave all of the weirdest, least useful items to Skaven heroes, but they did.
Lizardmen have some funny ones too. If you see, like, their skink chief has those useless charge debuff drums.
That's true. But, like, Shadow Magnet Trinket, 12 missile parry with a shield on a unit that doesn't have a shield. Pipes of Piebald, let your enemies charge you better than ever. It's like, what? Oh, and then this one always made me laugh. You have the Speed of Lycos item, one-time use on the Eshin Sorcerer. 25% speed, stock, and unspottable. Huh, that's the exact same spell as Skitter Leap that he has for 4 Winds of Magic.
I have actually used Scroll of Lycos on, what is it, the ROR Storm Vermin, and I make them invisible and fast, and I get them in, like, the way of a opponent's cav moving on me, and let them run into that.
Yeah. Couldn't you just use Skitter Leap, though? It's the same.
Could, but it didn't cost magic. But yeah, 4.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's just... Anyway. It's silly. Talking about heroes that suck, Zero's asking about Ghorritch. ChosenOne, Ghorritch. Just Ghorritch. That's all the question was. It's just Ghorritch with a bunch of question marks. What do you think about him?
Oh man, Ghorritch. His stats are not so impressive. His abilities, he has Vortex that's, again, kind of meh. And while he can buff himself to pretty good stats, damage output, he just costs too much and he very often doesn't hit. He just do some very poor animations and he's not attacking.
Mm-hmm.
He just spins around like I don't know what, and just you need him to hit actually. And he's also anti-infantry, which is completely useless for a 2,000 gold monster, or I don't know how much.
I mean, naked he's 1,600, and if you have to want to take Ghorritch, you should take him naked.
Yeah,
But,
of course, yeah.
I mean,
always
he does
take him
have Crown
naked.
of Command. So Crown of Command is maybe something you take on him, just to have an unbreakable whenever you want to. But yeah, no, he's just too expensive in general.
Yeah, he suffers from what I was... oh my fucking god. That was so perfect on stream. I had Ghorritch charge Torux, and both of them hit, but he knocked Torux over doing no damage, and Torux got a free hit on him. And my next sentence was going to be, he suffers from overly cool animations like Queek, where it's like... I've talked about this before, but CA sometimes does it where it's like, oh, we love characters so much, we're going to have Ghorritch like wind up and charge his thing, and then he's going to roar, and then he's going to jump in the air and try to pile drive you, and meanwhile Torux is just hitting him. He's just slapping him with axes, and it's like, yep, more animations faster, not fancier animations, please.
Yeah, that's a similar problem like with Nakai. Nakai also just swings his thing around, like, and not do any damage to anything. Mm-hmm. Same problem for Ghorritch.
But he's having so much fun. Nakai looks like he's having a lot of fun just randomly swinging his club.
Torux is kicking the shit out of Ghorritch. Oh my god.
Yeah, but he looks so much less stylish.
Yeah, but all his animations are just, I'm gonna hit you with my axes now, and Ghorritch is like spinning and doing all this dumb shit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh god. That's exactly how I feel about Queek. Frickin' Queek. Alright. When will Skaven get air units? Saltier than you. I would say I don't want them to have air units, but what are your thoughts?
I agree. And it's not a mechanics thing, it's a lore thing. Like, the funniest thing to me in Skaven lore is, like, Thankful and all these various Skaven leaders, whenever they get the chance to, like, get a dwarven airship or anything with air there, they try to get it and it blows up in their faces and explodes, and It's not in Skaven nature to fly.
Yeah.
They wouldn't get it.
Yeah, I think so. I don't believe Skaven should be getting anything in the air. They should be getting something to counter air a little bit better, but not the air.
I wouldn't hate for a Molder item, like let's say Throt, if he gets a rework, which I don't think he will, but just for this thought experiment, if he got a rework where he was like, you could use this item on a flying unit, and it's like his spiky whip that he has, and he like drags it to the ground, so you could ground an air unit and surround it with rat ogres or something. A mechanic like that could be useful, but I don't personally want Skaven to get flying units. No. So that would be my thought: is add an interesting anti-air mechanic rather than just make Skaven fly. And that was just spitballing. I'm not pretending that would be balanced. It was just before chat gets mad at me. All right. Hadres, you mentioned the Council Guard being invisible. I famously hate them. We'll start with ChosenOne, even though I mentioned Hadres. But Cuden asks, in what matchups or builds is the Council Guard good? And Killing Smalls asks, later on, it was something about how good is the Council Guard? I get mixed reviews about them. Is there anything you want to change? So basically, the Council Guard talk. Are they good? ChosenOne?
Oh, well, the Council Guard, the unit serves the purpose that you pick a bell, better even the Mortis bell, then you pick a solid Lord, probably a strong one, and you try to drag the game into the late game where you're fighting in the blob of Council Guard, maybe help it, maybe some Lord and Mortis engine against whatever, and you hope you can drag this game into a successful end because you have the buffering of Council Guard with the Guardian ability. Do I like them? Not really. They are 1350 and their melee output is pretty bad. But if I build around them and truly go into this strategy for the late game, then yes, they can be good.
The damage output, like you said, that is a Storm Vermin problem in general. Storm Vermin do not have like the weapon strength that you would need from an elite infantry unit. Like Storm Vermin halberds in particular, only 28 weapon strength with some mostly AP and only 17 bonus versus large. It's rough. But yeah, you generally want them for being unbreakable and guardian for the obvious reasons.
Yeah. I think why I hate them so and what could make them better, in my opinion, is just they're so susceptible to Burning Head that people take against Skaven. They're really susceptible to Final Trans. They don't have any resistances to that stuff. They don't have shields. They don't have missile resist, so even basic archers will poke them down over time. So I think I would be happy if they got either some form of missile resist or some form of magic resist, but at the moment they're just, for me personally, feel so susceptible to basic shit that people are going to take anyway. It's not like people have to go out of their way to counter the Council Guard. It's just, oh, the Council Guard are here, I guess I'll aim at them. It's not like, oh fuck, the Council Guard are here and I didn't bring any armor piercing missiles, oh, I'm in real trouble. It's just,
I will say, when it comes to Guardian, I've been preferring Chieftain on Bonebreaker for my Guardian source over Council Guard in a couple matchups. But, like, for example, against Vampire Counts, I think Council Guard is solid against Vampire Counts.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I feel about them. I don't like them. Now, I'll take them in some matchups where you need them. Like, Vampire Counts, they can be good. Unless the Mortis engine shows up. Tomb Kings, they can be good, that kind of stuff. But just because I sometimes take them doesn't mean I have to like them. Zero asking us another question about some of the worst units. Do Storm Vermin need a buff? And why are there no Chad Storm Vermin rushes? Spoken like a real player with Chosen on his roster.
The answer is yes, and because they need a buff. The first question answers the second.
Yeah.
And for me, I would want just weapon strength buffs, I think, or anything, any kind of.
Chosen
Well,
one?
personally for me, I can't see a unit that costs 1,000 gold or 1,050 gold work with 60 leadership. It simply is not good enough. In how the leadership works in this game, you can tear out it very easily, and since the Skaven are not exactly famous for their controlling of the map, then a chasing of storm vermin for 1,050 gold is very easy. So that's why you will always see 3 clan rats, because if you want to chase 3 clan rats, then you need to have quite a lot of mobility and you need to have quite a good micro. But 1 unit of storm vermin, sword and shield, route it off and chase it. Easiest thing ever.
Yeah, I wouldn't want any stat buffs for Storm Vermin because in the lore, Storm Vermin are fucking trash. Like every Skaven character and their mother is always like, "But I have Storm Vermin," and then they lose and die. But they should not be worth 1,000 gold. I would prefer if they were like an 850 gold unit and they're just as bad as they are. But then again, I like the fact that
I can see that.
I like the fact that Skaven are the shit infantry faction, so I'm okay with our elite infantry also being shit. I just I wish they weren't so expensive.
Yeah, I agree. Like, in what world Stormvermin and Sword and Shield are much more elite than, let's say, Empire's Great Swords?
Oh, yeah. I haven't tested that, but I imagine the greatswords would beat the shit out of them.
They can be
Of course.
they can be a pain in the ass in Vermintide.
Yeah, they can.
Like, you see a wall of storm vermin with shields coming at you in Vermintide, you're like, no.
I infinitely
No.
prefer fighting halberds in Vermintide, but
Yeah.
in Total War, Sword and Shield just really don't have a great place. I do take them in my Dark Elf matchup, but that's just because they can beat Bleak Swords and Dread Spears all day, and Dark Elves are almost never going to bring the infantry that can kill them. But the Council Guard trade even against Torix the Brass Bull, the literal target they're supposed to be fighting, an armored large unit, but...
I mean, that's not bad value-wise.
Yeah, you just have to rely on your opponent to sprint an armored large target into them and then stay there
For a really long time.
for a really long time.
I was like, when you're taking the Council Guard, you're kind of committing to, I want the late game blob that will hopefully go my way. The trouble is, Skaven usually gets cycle charged to death in those situations.
Yep, exactly.
I've spent many a game getting cycle charged to death. Alright. Is that it for Storm Vermin? Looks like it. Mutant Rat Ogres. How do you fix them? Me. Hadres, you said you've been playing with them recently, actually. Do they even need fixing?
I don't think they need fixing. I wouldn't say no to like 2 extra melee defense, maybe like 200 more health, but in general, so the reason why I've been using them is you take an assassin, a chieftain, and a mutant rat ogre, right? So the double chieftain gets replaced by 1 assassin, so you get assassin's trophy and his item debuff. And the mutant rat ogre has basically the same animation set as the chieftain on Bonebreaker, and they don't get in each other's way usually. Like, that's why double chieftain was good, because you can have both of them fight next to each other and they won't get in each other's way. It's like double Vargulf. And the same applies to mutant rat ogres. Maybe they're a little expensive. Like, I don't know, the Brood Horror costs too much. The Mutant Rat Ogre, maybe 50 gold off. But honestly, yeah, I'm kind of okay with using Mutant Rat Ogres. Not saying they can't maybe use a buff, but yeah.
Yeah, similar here. I wouldn't mind if they get 50 gold cheaper. Also, I wouldn't mind if their animation would be slightly better, so they hit slightly more often. But yeah, I always felt that for like 60 plus melee attack unit, they just don't hit as much as I would like them to.
I will agree. I used to take Morskatar's Hellion against Empire because for some reason its animations were good enough to hit Volkmar. I know it does magic damage, but I just needed the good animations because I had too many games where like a Skaven warlord on a Broodhorror would run up to his chariot and then just sit there because it wasn't like close enough to start an attack, but it couldn't get close enough because Volkmar's really high up in the middle of his chariot. But Morskatar's Hellion would do those leaping animations, but the basic Mutant Rat Ogre, I have had a really hard time with it connecting. Yeah, I agree. Why did the Frenzy changes actually nerf Skaven in particular? Bowmore and Cry is free. We'll start with ChosenOne.
Well, as I mentioned, the leadership in this game works the way that you lose leadership when your flanks are insecure, when your lord is dead, when you're losing in melee, etc., etc. And you lose fixed numbers, so you lose, I don't know, 6, 9, 10. And since the Skaven leadership is already pretty low at the beginning, then it's very easy to get below the 50%, so you're losing the frenzy very often and very quickly. And since the unit has been slightly nerfed and the frenzy has been slightly buffed, then you don't have the frenzy that often, which means your units are slightly weaker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly what ChosenOne said. And in addition to the other leadership things he mentioned, just having, if there's a unit that is faster than the unit you're using next to, and it's fighting next to the unit, they'll get the faster enemy nearby leadership penalty, and that'll factor in. A lot of things are faster than Skaven units, and like pretty much any cavalry unit is faster than Rat Ogres. So that's a bummer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very frustrating. There is a unit of worthless
In general,
Wolf Riders near, and
yeah,
they're
Wolf
losing
Riders,
leadership.
Spider Riders. Mm-hmm. And in general, I kind of wish they'd get rid of that leadership effect in general. Like, it affects Hydras, it affects Hell Pits. There's a lot of units that just, yeah, have leadership issues just because of their speed of all things. And it's rough.
Mm-hmm. Faster and stronger enemies nearby is weird. It should probably just be stronger enemies nearby.
Yeah, or just cut.
Or just cut that. 3 Skaven mains saying cut that leadership debuff about being better than us. Unbiased sources. Alright. Bowmore, we've talked about this a while. Why is the Brood Horror still too strong? He's joking. And what further measures need to be taken to tone this mighty beast down? We talked about that, so I'm just going to skip it, but I acknowledge
even less mass, because I want the Ancient Salamander to be nerfed as well.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, Ancient Salamander and Broodhar, they share a skeleton. You can't nerf one without the other, so I say reduce their mass further and punish the Lizardmen secretly. Huh?
Oh, Lizardmen. Lizardmen are sitting at the top of the tier lists for like 3 patches in a row, and now they're all upset.
I actually think right now they are... I want to see more games, but I think that Lizardmen are pretty much on top, with Beastmen like clinging on as second. Could be wrong, but yeah, Lizardmen feel really good right now.
Yep. Also, when you consider that the Skaven DLC came up with Wood Elves, and Wood Elves are still one of the most meta factions, while Skaven got literally hammered into like bottom 3 or bottom 5. It's kind of sad.
We haven't talked about matchups very much. Oh, Chasing Rainbows, we did talk about the Warriors of Chaos thing with Deadly Bunnies earlier, just acknowledging I saw that. Real Human Being asks, what can dwarves do versus Skaven? I mean, not a lot. Hadres, you want to go?
Okay, so the thing with dwarves is, it's actually a question of funds. Technically, dwarves have the units on their roster to beat Skaven, or to at least counter what Skaven take. The thing is, they don't have enough funds to take enough of each counter unit. You know, they need to bring things to counter Death Runners, right, for the melee side. They need to counter Jezzails in ranged, and you can't really bring a build that counters both to enough of a degree. You bring a bunch of gyrocopters and blasting charges and chaff to kill the Death Runners. You don't have enough artillery to contest the Jezzail fire. Jezzail snipe your lord, your important things, and then you get ground down. You over-invest in artillery to destroy the Jezzails. Death Runners run in and kill you. Like, dwarves would be fine with an extra 1,000 gold, I think. Like, yeah, if dwarves have an extra 1,000 gold to play with, I think they could like put up a good fight against Skaven. But right now, there's just not enough. Yeah, they just can't bring enough to counter the main things that Skaven have against them.
Okay. ChosenOne, any thoughts, or did he cover it pretty well?
I think Hadres said it perfectly. There is not much Skaven can do. They can win it with imperfect plays. They can shoot the sails well enough so the gyrocopters will survive. At least two of them will survive the fight between the gyrocopters and the artillery. Then they can snipe the Skaven lords, and once the Skaven lords are gone, then kind of everything just starts falling apart. But it's very difficult for the dwarves to do it.
I got into a fight with ChosenOne on Turn's Discord once. It was... Wait, did I say ChosenOne? Sorry, I meant Lotus Moon. Lotus Moon on Turn's Discord, and I was not very good at the game at that point. And we ran into each other on quick battles, and he picked dwarves into my Skaven, and he destroyed me really badly. And he's like, you might want to consider your game knowledge when dedicating to an argument. And I'm like, point taken. It was pretty funny because I had some shit opinion about, like, you know, I don't remember what it was after all this time, but like, let's just say
there's nothing Skaven could do against dwarves.
Or
They're
like,
so oppressive.
Rakarth is actually the best Dark Elf Lord, or just like, I just had some shit opinion and I went hard on it, and I was like, no, Lotus Spoon, you're wrong, and it was very funny.
Yeah, Lotus must be used to that from the forums.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you gotta love giving Lotus Moon shit takes before he beats you up in quick battle. All right. This next question has two matchups in it, so we'll divide it up. Killing Smalls asks, could you elaborate on the Tomb Kings and Greenskin matchups? ChosenOne. Let's do Greenskins with you and Tomb Kings with Hadres. So, how do you handle Greenskins, good sir?
Well, Greenskins, as you could have seen from my games against Voidlords, not super well.
It's tough.
I think if you can get the Poison Wind Mortar Kite, as I intended to do, and your opponent doesn't bring Spirit Leech, then yeah, it's not really bad. It kind of gets into very solid matchup territory. But if your opponent gets diffuse overcast Spirit Leeches, as Voidlords did have, well, that's really big trouble. And of course, the other option is you can pick the Ikit Zap Zap, which is always a good option, and try to snipe these casters or maybe even Grum. And shoot it all game and hope the opponent's not playing the perfect game, and also hope that your opponent doesn't know how to cheese the end game with, let's say, picking one skirmish cav and not shooting the ammunition with it, and just late game kite with everything, regenerating your stone trolls and hags and Grom while shooting with that one stupid unit. It's very enjoyable when it happens to you against Voidlords. I have had it.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, that's just game over for you. If that cheese happens, yeah, that's nothing you can do. So it can be troublesome. Without a Spirit Leech, yeah, I can believe it's quite even. With it, hard times.
Oh, if only their caster couldn't regenerate while overcasting that shit. Because at least then the damage would add up. But the River Troll Hag immediately just heals it all up, and nothing overcasted matters. Yeah.
Yep.
It's pretty tough. Is Tomb Kings as bad, or is it a little better, Hadres?
I think Tomb Kings is a little better. Like they do also have Spirit Leech, but unlike the Hag, like it's Archon. He will blow himself up trying to overcast Spirit Leech. That's his curse. And also, I think I've said this before, but it's a map dependent matchup. If you can bring the it gets zap, then you can do a pretty standard boxy build with Skrulk, Double Chieftain, maybe like more the ROR Rat Ogre, whatever, and be okay. Triple Poison Wind Globes. If the map doesn't let you do Warp Lightning Cannons or anything, then I think I think ChosenOne mentioned it earlier, a kind of Mimi Throt Clan Molder Rush can work. Tomb Kings are sometimes susceptible to, like 4 Rat Ogres, Throt, or not even, I don't think you even need Throt. You can do a Gracier Plague with a bunch of Rat Ogres, Chieftain, Assassin, Mutant Rat Ogre, have a really strong wrecking ball of a blob moving through the lines, and then just fill out with whatever chaff you want. And that can be strong against Tomb Kings. So I think Skaven have options in that matchup.
Yeah,
depending on what the map is.
Tomb King skeletons, for some reason, feel so much worse in, like, they suck kind of way than the vampire counts. Like, I swear even clan rats feel like they trade up into those guys.
Yeah, don't know entirely why.
That's so bad.
To me, the Tomb King matchup felt always much more even than, let's say, Greenskins. Like, Skaven, I believe, have more than one option to play. I believe if you can play the aggressive blob of monsters, it can be good. You can play with plenty of Giselles. Maybe snipe the leadership if your opponent is not microing precisely. You can even play the box of Warp Lightning Cannons, as I believe I did to, I don't know, Happy Puppy some time ago. But you're relying on map as well here, again, as usually. But at least your infantry kind of can trade up solidly, which is always nice. Not very often with Skaven.
Yeah. I found out why. The Tomb King skeletons only have 10 armor, while vampire counts have 20. And that even that little difference in armor can really matter when clan rats are involved.
I guess, yeah.
But, yeah. Tomb Kings are weird. Their chariots, for me, feel like they either do nothing or do everything, and I can't tell what the difference is.
I agree. I've had Tomb King chariots beat Rat Ogres just straight up kill them. They both get the charge off, like 1v1, and Tomb King chariots can beat Rat Ogres sometimes.
Yeah, and there are other times they just get shot by Giselles, and that's the end of them. I don't know. Anticity recently played me, and he was kind of memeing with his chat, and his chat gave him this like Lord sniping build. And he played against my Skaven, and I couldn't do anything about the chariots. They were just rolling through. I tried to get Rat Ogres on top of them, and it felt like they just drifted past him, and it was like, what's going on? I just got run over the whole game. It was pretty sad. All right. Against an artillery faction, do you try to kill their artillery with Giselles, or ignore them and try to snipe valuable assets while you get shot at? Cuden. We'll go to ChosenOne first.
Well, that depends on your build, of course. If you can, then always go for the Threaded 13 for the artillery. That's absolutely the best option you can do. And if you can reasonably get rid of the artillery with Giselles, you should do it. Because the artillery will shoot at your belled wall game and will drag it down eventually. So, yes, get rid of the artillery if you can. If the Empire player buffers, then try to get rid of the army. Then you have to beat the army. Empire is, in this case, quite a tricky matchup, I believe. I would rather play Empire than Tomb Kings, maybe even. And Yeah, you have to beat the army or suffer the artillery. And you have to pick one and
Gotcha.
hope it's the best decision.
Giselles are very effective against artillery if they can get in range, but that's a big if sometimes. That's the mark of a good player when I'm playing against them is when they know not to sit with their artillery against Skaven. They'll just advance really far up
and let the artillery fire from behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when the Vikstrand's Death Squad comes in to ruin their day.
Death Squad they kill artillery so fast, like faster than
they
any
kill
other.
the crews faster than anything else. Yep.
It's I swear they have a secret bonus versus artillery crews because they just delete them. It's actually kind of it's very calming to watch artillery crews get deleted by fictions.
Yeah, it's definitely great. But yeah, if it's Volkmar cavalry rush, then suddenly your Fiction's Death Squad is completely useless while being one guarded in the corner. And they are sad and you lose.
See, I strongly disagree with that because they're a messenger to tell the council of your failure. So, still useful.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Killing Smalls asks, what matchups feel the most out of your control and determined by maps or builds? For example, I would say Wood Elves because if you don't guess what they're bringing into you, you're pretty screwed, in my opinion. But I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. Let's start with Hadres.
I agree with Wood Elves, and not because I don't know about like map dependency in this case. For me, it's just 5 Dryads, 2 Waystalkers, 4 Deepwood Scouts, 4 Glade Riders, and some Caster Lord. Like the most basic Wood Elf army. And the fact that the 2 Waystalkers can kill all your characters basically means it feels like you have very little control over that matchup. You can know that they're bringing exactly that build, and still it's the hardest thing to play against. So that's not even map dependence differences. That's just Wood Elves are so overwhelmingly powerful over the Skaven. You don't really have much control or say in the matter.
Chosen?
When I'm thinking about it, I would probably add even High Elves because they have quite a few options to play against the Skaven. Neither of them is like super hard counter to Skaven. The matchup is fairly even, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But for High Elves, you can go with some pretty degenerate blob of Chariots, Lariel, and Phoenixes, and that can be painful to deal with if you bring your Poison Wind Mortars or Poison Wind Globadiers, because they are useless in that case. And they can as well pick, 8 archers with spears, 20 stack almost, and that can also be quite good against Skaven, and both have kind of like easy counter, but you have to guess which is it.
Yeah. I would agree. When I play against Jay Phoenix especially, the Chariot and Phoenix blob is coming. You know it's coming. It's your job to stop it.
Skaven can't stop it in melee.
No, not in melee.
Not in melee.
Cryosfree asks... Sorry, you go.
Yeah, I agree with you, Human Boy. Like, if you are not prepared for the Chariot and Phoenix blob, then you are suffering hard times.
Cryosfree asks, how can you beat a Vampire Coast hard rush? And the example they gave involved Sirens and Rotting Prometheans and maybe even a Rotting Leviathan just sprinting at you.
I mean, if you know for a fact that it's coming, what are they? The Plague Monk Censor Bearers will win you the day pretty reliably.
Oh, I suppose they are very good against Sirens, aren't they?
They'll melt them. They have AP. Their leadership is actually okay, and sure they have Frenzy, but They're if you know for a fact it's coming, they're good. But if Coast mixes it up on you and brings anything besides the Cyrene Rush, then they're gonna be kind of dead weight.
Hmm.
I guess like one Warp Fire Thrower can be funny against Syrenes. It's Ghostbusters.
Yeah. I generally just stick with the traditional four Jezzails and outshoot them. But ChosenOne, do you do something different versus Coast, or?
I believe that against Ghost, that the Pestilent Breath is the time to shine for this spell.
Yeah.
It's not really amazing, but here you should always bring it. Then, of course, that Master Snitch is his again one of the times where he shines. Ashen Triads in this matchup in general are pretty good. Against the Prometheans, they are just amazing.
Yeah, that would be cool.
And yeah, you try to snipe the caster, so no more buffering for the Prometheans. You try to kill the Sirens with the magic, and you might even pick the magical Wolf Rats. They do really well against them as well. Until they throw out, which happens, but they do a lot of damage before that. And then you watch the Ashen Triads carry. And you, of course, pick some slingers to kill the regular zombies.
Yeah.
Or, as Human Boy said, you can spam sails. They do work.
They're great against gunbats, against the Vampire Coast Artillery. It's just I mean, Jezzails are... It's hard to list the matchups where Jezzails won't help you, but there's like two. Like Beastmen, it won't really help you, and other than that, I don't know. I mean, obviously don't over-index in them, but they're good.
I would say the regular Jezzails are slightly overrated.
Blasphemy. Heresy, even.
Yeah.
Oh.
They are good, but they are not that amazing.
They did get nerfed from their time of legend.
Oh, for sure. Back then they were a little bit too good. Now they are okay.
Lies and blasphemy. Who even are you two? Oh yeah, that's right. Jokes. The last matchup question. Wei asks, what would be your general advice about dealing with hard rushes as Skaven, since every faction besides dwarves wants to sprint at you? I guess my initial thought would be Rat Ogres. Rat Ogres are crucial for that reason. They're not an amazing unit. They're just all we have to block up cavalry and stuff, and that's why we take them. Let's start with ChosenOne.
As you said, Red Ogres, great unit. You always need them. Almost always. At least one or two. And if you know the rush is coming, Poison Wind Globadiers, your best friend.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously slaves, obviously summons to stop the advance as much as you can.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about it. Yeah, early summons, block with Red Ogres, try to get as many volleys of Poison Wind Globadiers as you can. But if the rush is, let's say, Beastmen, then it won't be enough, most likely.
Mm-hmm. I've had a Vanguard, not a Vanguard squad, but okay, so if you know that a rush is coming, and it usually is, what I sometimes do is take a Doom Wheel or a Plague Furnace with summons and send it out a little bit ahead along with, say, 2 Skaven Slaves and maybe a Slinger, and kind of create a pocket on the side of the rush, which then they either can engage that pocket and my ranged will fire into that fight and either win it or cost the opponent more, or it'll throw them off completely and they'll pivot to address your little Vanguard squad and give you so much more time to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just a little push out with a unit of value like a Doom Wheel or Plague Furnace and some slaves, and you create like a second side front that can distract your opponent or cost them a flank while your main force shoots and is ready for the units that make it to them.
Cryas Free asks about rat ogres. What is the optimal amount of rat ogres? And don't you dare say it depends on the matchup. Well, with that handicap, because, of course it depends on the matchup.
It depends on the matchup.
Yeah. I'd say you always want at least 2 to cover your flanks, because if someone's rushing you with pure infantry, then you're probably going to beat them anyway. So there's going to be something flanking you that rat ogres can deal with. So you at least want 2, 1 for each side. Do either of you disagree?
I mean, I can live with 1.
Blasphemy.
To me, if you play against a faction that can bring chariots or can bring manticores, which you need to at least try to pin down, or cavalry, if you don't bring 2, then you're in trouble as well, I believe. But you can bring 1 if you bring some other monsters that will deal with the threats. But if you don't bring any other mass, then 2 is minimum.
Cuden asks, there's another one somewhere around here that was the same thing. Hold on. There it is. So Chasing Rainbows and Cuden both ask, for backline defense and mass, is there anything besides rat ogres that's useful? Maybe wolf rats? I mean, obviously on the mass front, the wolf rats lose, but they are good sweepers. But any thoughts of things to use if for some reason you can't use rat ogres?
More Skaven slaves? More Skaven slaves.
More.
Actually, like, lately I've been just using Skaven slaves as backline mass units more than anything else. That's kind of feels like their place right now. Maybe warp grinders? I mean, maybe like 1 in substitute of a rat ogre to trap things.
ChosenOne?
I don't think I would have a better answer than this. I sometimes put the gutter runners with poison at the back. If there is a skirmish cavalry that very often just runs to your back line and tries to be annoying from there and waiting for you to push your defense of the back line up front, compensate for your front line losing, and just charging at the back, then putting there your gutter runners that can also shoot in the front while still being around for the back line is not a bad idea, but I think what
BRB real
Hadres
quick.
said
Okay.
is good enough.
I like the more Skaven slaves. There's always more Skaven slaves. Let's see if we can find a ChosenOne specific question while Hadres is gone. What clan are you most affiliated with? Like Skaven clan? Not ODM, obviously. Obviously ODM.
As I've said, my favorite lord is Krog, so Clan Pestilence.
Very nice. I probably actually like Clan Moors because in the lore they are there's like, you know how every Skaven clan has like a superpower where it's like Pestilence has all those plagues and shit. Moors' superpower is a modicum of loyalty, and it's so funny to me that like the concept that they wouldn't instantly betray their friends, they would just betray their friends after a little bit of coaxing, is considered a superpower in Skaven society. And they're like, man, those Moors rats are freaks. They don't immediately betray each other all the time. And they still betray each other, but like, you at least have to pay them. Or at least other Skaven clans, if you even suggest you might possibly pay them, they'll kill their best friend for you. I just think that's hilarious. So I definitely like Moors a lot. And Hadres already said earlier that he likes Eshin.
I'm back.
Hadres, do you like
yes,
Eshin?
I like Eshin. I do like Eshin.
All right, I wasn't wrong about you.
Yeah, their lore fits the style of play you gotta go with them.
You both love gutter runners, so you might disagree with the concept of this question. Cryas Free asks, what buffs do gutter runners need? ChosenOne, we'll start with you.
Gold decrease. If you compare them to Camellian Kings, their damage output, I'm not so sure about that right now. I've calculated some time ago, but I
It's
believe their overall
that's
output
terrible.
is lower, and mostly because of their ammunition being just 12.
Oh, it's that low?
Yeah, they're like Gutter Runner and Night Runner ammo is so terrible. It is less than half, I think, of what Chameleon Skinks get.
Night Runners
It's
get 10.
yeah, yeah.
Oh.
So that's really bad. So yeah, ammo buffs, maybe cost, like ChosenOne mentioned. I would even say so. Yeah, they only have 2 AP, the Night Runners, on their shots. So basically turn 1 base damage, or maybe 2 base damage into AP, and just not make them full AP, just give them a little more on their shots, because that'd be a big boon to any missile unit. Things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the ammo is why you can't really compare them to any other like skirmishing unit. Their ammo is just too low to compete in that front.
That is true. Ouch. Ouch. I always ran out of ammo, but I clearly, as indicated throughout this interview, I don't really use them. I wish I used them more, and I'm working on it, but like, they do always run out of ammo in every single game. Oof. I think a fun buff I could like, because as I mentioned, I like interesting mechanics. I like their snare net, the minus 10% speed around self. I like the concept of it. I kind of wish it worked on their ranged attacks so that they like their shurikens would slow you down. So it's kind of like
Hey, you barely feel it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it comes up and is relevant, but yeah.
Yeah, the big problem with the snare net is it's in such a short range around you. Anything coming near you is getting its charge animation anyway.
And yeah, already inside, yeah.
So I think if it was on their ranged attack rather than just the circle around them, that would be a little more useful. But I like that idea. It just doesn't feel very effective. But I guess they do need a little of more ammunition would be my biggest answer. Personally, I don't feel the cost decrease as much because, as we've mentioned, we're already hard capped by 20 unit models, so I don't need more money. I need better units.
Yeah, yeah.
True.
All right. What is your favorite Skaven unit, not a lord? Pugnabone. Let's start with Hadres.
Well, I'm also going to, because if it includes RORs, you can get very specific. Because in terms of RORs, it could zap both competitively. Its name is great. Like, yeah, it could zap is my favorite ROR. But in terms of like general unit type, or general unit, I'd say probably Death Runners, for very much the same reason why I like Snikch. They just feel like an assassination squad and not elite infantry duelists or anything like that. You have to be careful with them, but they can get good damage in.
For me, I would say Red Ogres. Mostly because I'm playing Skaven from the earliest of times in multiplayer, and back in the day, it was literally the only unit that was good.
Well, you still
Before
needed
all the
Skavens.
DLCs.
You still needed slingers of some kind to kill dragons. That was the biggest like hallmark of old school Skaven, is having to kill a star dragon with pebbles.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was fun.
God.
But yep, for me, Red Ogres.
That's one of the funniest lore bits, by the way, is High Elves Phoenix Guard know how they're going to die. They, like, see it in vision. And, like, some of them have to be shanked by a Skaven slave or killed by a pebble. Like, it's factually true. And imagine being that guy and just like, yep, I'm going to go out to battle today knowing that's how I
do a
die.
pebble. It's great.
Ooh. Radogre's unit models actually look better than I give them credit for. There's a lot of diversity in them.
Oh yeah, take 2 mutant rat ogres and look at them side by side. You'll notice they have different like armaments and different detachments and arms.
I have never pretended that Skaven aren't the visually most loved faction in game 2. Like, someone at CA really likes the Skaven aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
A little too much, as I mentioned with the animations griping I did earlier, but they do love us. Cryas Free asks, Skaven slave spears or swords? Now, when I was learning Skaven with Vicious Satsuma and Jay Phoenix, and they told me never to take, if you have the option, always take the spears because of the better melee defense, but is that incorrect? Let's start with Hadres.
I do generally like spears, especially on my sides, but if you're going, it depends on what you're doing with them. Like, if you are keeping them primarily as like backline mass or side mass, then yeah, spears always. They are more useful, and in late game, I think yeah, we've had situations where like a really low health unit of Empire Knights can potentially lose to a half health unit of Skaven Slave Spears, and that just feels good. But if you're just like going for frontline mass, you might as well go as cheap as you can and take the slaves. The melee defense difference is not actually that relevant. What is relevant is the small bonus versus large that the spears get versus, like I said, late game, like dead, tired, exhausted cav can get brought down by Skaven Slave Spears if they're not too low.
Mm-hmm.
So that is nice. Otherwise, yeah, frontline mass, just regular slaves can do just as well.
Gotcha. ChosenOne, any differing thoughts?
No, I would say exactly the same thing.
Well, Chasing Rainbows asks my favorite question of the night: when to take a monster rush? ChosenOne?
As I said, I think against Doom Kings, which Hadres didn't deny.
Agreed.
Yeah, but that's mostly about it. If you want to play the vampire counts with a blob, which I wouldn't recommend.
No, they do it better than you.
They do it better than you, but if you want to do it for some reason, then you can. But that's mostly about it.
Not even...
you can maybe surprise Empire sometimes with a monsterish rush. Granted, they do have those annoying pistoliers, but you have hounds.
Yeah, those pistoliers and huntsmen sometimes, they can be very painful for that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Monster rushes are a bit of a risk, and actually a lot of a risk, because and when you're talking about optimal strength, all of that in the Skaven rosters in their ranged. Like, none of the Skaven infantry is like optimal for cost. Absolutely none of it. The monsters pretty much the same, especially now that Radogur's got dinged with a damage nerf. The monster rush is actually less viable than it was before. Back when Doomflayers were good, you could do a fun Ikit Claw, triple Doomflayer, Wheels of Doom, just get them in a blob, pop Death Frenzy on them, and I think I killed a Dread Saurian once with that. So that's funny, but not anymore. Doomflayers are the worst unit. Actually, was that a question? What's the worst unit on the Skaven roster? Because it's Doomflayers.
It's Doomflayers. There's a question about the Doomflayers, but there is not a single what's the worst unit. But it's Doomflayers.
Well, I'll answer it anyway. It's Doomflayers.
Gotcha. Well, might as well go to that then. Artisan Tech Priest, when best to use the wheels? Flayers or Doom wheels? He's just talking about the chariots in general. And how would you make them better but not oppressive? Because both are a little underwhelming at the moment. Hadres, you're already talking about it, so just keep rolling.
Oh, no, I was going to say Doomflayers are not usable in any scenario. Even if you push them to, like, give them optimal engagements and use them to the best of your ability, you can only get about 750 value on a Doomflayer. and they cost 1,200. So that is awful, and you won't always get optimal engagements. Like the Dwarfing Menace, in theory, with its armor debuff, can be used, but it's too expensive for what I have in mind, like debuffing cavalry and then having something with low AP but good attacks get on them. It's a thing, but yeah, they cost too much. I would knock 200 gold off both Doom Flayers and see where it goes from there, maybe. As for the Doom Wheels, I think Doom Wheels are actually quite good. They're surprisingly decent at fending off, things that try to attack them. Their shots are nice. They just don't really... They kind of get outclassed sometimes, and they don't synergize as well with other Skaven builds. I don't know. It's chosen. What do you think? Where best to use Doom Wheels?
Well, as you said, I believe they are okay, especially the ROR one with the missile strength being 203. That's pretty good. Their ammunition actually can hurt even single entities. They can tickle them quite nicely over longer games. But yeah, they kind of don't solve your problems because they are anti-infantry. They are very good against infantry. And you have already plenty of other stuff that is also good against infantry. You have the Globdeers, which are simply more cost effective in every way.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like they are Have to Terror. It's useful. It's not a bad unit if you can play it well, but you need to micro it very well. You need to protect it very well. And I believe that they don't solve your problems. They don't solve your Manticore problems. They don't solve your spawn problems, your chariot problems, your mobility issues. Maybe the mobility issues, they kind of help. But they are solid, pretty good actually, but they're not what you need, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think if the Doom Flayers had... Like when you kill one of their models, they explode. Not like a bloated corpse explode, but a little explosion. That could bring something to it. Or that Greenskin Pump Wagon ROR. What is that thing? This Spidey
Spore Splodas or something. Their explosion is very minimal. They actually could use a change in their explosion, but
like something of that idea where if you're going to keep them... If you keep them this expensive, which I argue you should just make them cheaper, but at least give them some cool like scryer mechanic rather than just being shitty, underwhelming chariots. It's like, well, can we have some explosions? Can we have some lightning? Something cool? No, just chariots as expensive as a brood horror and do way less, even in their nerfed brood horror state. Not ideal. Or a repair mechanic. Oh, that could be kind of fun. If you have them sit still, they'll like start regenning if they're sitting perfectly still. So you could pull them out of the battle and regen a bit. Would it be useful? But it'd be funny.
Maybe even give something to the Warlock Engineer, like similar thing that the Packmaster have for healing such units.
Yeah,
instead of the hilarious thing like the Doom Rocket, which is completely useless, or the Shadow Magnet Trinket, which is just a meme. Yeah.
Extra powder is also not ideal because you'd have to cluster up your units so much, and that just is going to get final transed and routed or something. But oh boy, what else are we doing here? Let's do some lighter ones. If Rattling Ogres came to pass in Game 3, would they count as a variant or the same unit as Rat Ogres, killing smalls? I mean, probably their own unit, if we're being serious, but I don't think a Rattling Ogre is a serious question. I don't know.
Oh, no, I believe they will come.
Aren't they called Vermin Lords, or...
No, they will be the Storm Fiends.
Storm Fiends, right. Storm Fiends are rat ogres with rattling guns for hands. They exist in Vermintide. You fight them in Vermintide.
They are existing unit on the Skaven Lord, and I really think they are coming
Yeah, they are.
eventually.
And I do think they'll count as their own unit, or possibly a variant, but unlikely, and definitely not the same unit.
Yeah,
Bowmore
probably not.
Bowmore asks, how would you like to see Storm Fiends implemented? Chosen One, like, what would they? Are they anti-large duelists? Are they anti-infantry?
To be honest, I don't think their melee prowess really matters. I believe they would be just reskinned Red Ogres with slightly weaker melee prowess and, the rattling gun hands. And of course, I would guide with them because, of course.
That would be so cool.
And yeah, I would like a similar unit to rattling the Red Ogres with rattling guns on their hands. Of course, at least little reskinned, Please, CA. Give them animations.
All right. Hadres, any differences, or did he nail it?
I think it's good, and if you want like an idea of how they might work out mechanically, like a monstrous infantry with ranged attack, you could look at the man-eaters with ogre pistols, that elite ogre unit. At 1400, their missile strength is 96 AP. Like, they're just regular pistols, so I think the Storm Fiend one would be a little stronger. But yeah, you kind of have something like that already in game that you can play around with. Man-eaters.
Man-eaters. All right, DLC questions. Pugnabone asks, when are we getting a Skaven versus Skaven DLC? Probably at the start of Game 3. I think
Yeah,
that's
the first DLC of Game 3 needs to be Skaven.
Yeah, of course. ChosenOne, do you wish there was a Skaven versus Dowie DLC? Is it surprising Warhammer 2 did not have one, given their lore stuff? That's from Way.
Actually, yes. I've always expected there will be a Skaven against Dwarf DLC. Well, I was surprised it's Skaven against Wood Elves. I mean, it was still Skaven DLC, so I was kind of satisfied, but it would make very much sense to me. And I hope there still will be a Skaven against Dwarves DLC at some point in the franchise.
They could, actually, and that leads me to this next question, but I just thought of this. They could do Thankful versus Malachi Michelson, because in the books, Thankful's trying to steal his airship for like 2 whole Gotrek and Felix books.
Yeah.
And people want Malachi. That would actually be super hype. And get the airship added. Like, even if it's not multiplayer, the airship could be the campaign mechanic for the Skavens. So you're like chasing this airship around the map. That would be just so cool. But Bowmore's question is, if/when Thankful gets implemented, would you prefer to have him on... Wait, sorry, what was that? Would you prefer to have Bone Ripper as a mount? Oh, there. Okay, his mount, Bone Ripper, would you prefer it as a mount option for him or as a supporting hero, kind of like Ghorritch?
Neither. I would want them to be like a Skarsnik package. So... Bone, yeah. So as a combined unit, like Skarsnik and his Gobla. I think that'd be interesting.
When it comes to strength of the unit, I believe I would prefer it to be a mount because of the speed it would give to the caster. But to me, it's more important that he will be a lord and not a hero. Because the legendary lords right now are just pretty mediocre, and like Skaven is one of the only factions where legendary lord is not your obvious pick, and that kind of tells a lot. Even if the bell is really good, it's not like insanely good, so it just overshadows the lords. But
yeah, at the same time, I am kind of one of the things I do like about Skaven right now is that they don't have a Fae, they don't have a Marathi, they don't have that one legendary lord that just carries the faction in an obnoxious way.
Yeah.
So the variety, or the option for variety, is kind of appreciated.
What spells would you want Thankful to have if you could name, let's say two. If you could name two spells you want Thankful to have in his roster, what would it be? Let's start with ChosenOne. Also, what the fuck is on my stream right now? Queek's routing and Skarsnik is shattering and the game is ended and everything on the map is routing. I'm confused. Also, Queek loses to Skarsnik? Why? Ugh. I'm so pissed. Anyway, I'm sorry I got distracted. ChosenOne, what two spells would you have Thankful have out of his 6, obviously, but if you got to pick two?
I'm not so sure what lore he would be, if he's combined of Ruin and Plague, or what is it. But if I can pick, then Warp Lightning and Vermintide.
Same. I was thinking the exact same thing. Just give him the combination of the best Ruin and Plague spells, and it makes sense. Like Warp Gale, Lightning, Vermintide.
That'd be pretty good. I would like him to have Skitterleap from the lore of Stealth, because he uses that a lot in the books, but otherwise, Warp Lightning is pretty classic for him. But I hope he has a mixed lore, because in the books he just kind of does whatever he wants. He doesn't really pertain to one thing, and mixed lore mages are always really fun, in my opinion.
Although I'm kind of worried. In the lore, he's basically a crack addict with Warpstone. So I'm kind of worried that they'll translate that to "I hurt myself to get more magicka." That's an original thing, right?
Yes.
I'm worried that's the way they're gonna go, because they always do that. Oy.
Please, no more Ikit Claw, please.
He hurts himself even more. Takes all the drugs.
Jeremy asked what game 3 faction, if we couldn't pick dwarves, like you can only pick the new game 3 stuff, what faction do you think the Skaven would match up against in a DLC? Let's start with ChosenOne.
Katai. And Dave already mentioned that there is a Skaven threat on the borders of Katai. So, and it really is. There is the threat of Skaven for Katai. So it feels the most natural for them to be the one. Because all the Chaos Gods, I don't believe they are suited for it. And Kislev already have Throt the Unclean near to them in the Hellpit. So, just Katai.
Yeah, I agree. Kathy makes sense as a game 3 faction for Skaven to tussle with.
If I had to cheat, I would say Chaos Dwarves, but they aren't confirmed yet. So out of the confirmed ones, I would agree Cathay. The only other thing I could think would be Khorne, but with Throt the Unclean already being added, that would lose a lot of impact, because Throt and Ghorritch versus Khorne would have been interesting, because then the campaign mechanic could have been you start without him, and if you beat like a certain story army, you get Ghorritch from taking that Berserker and dissecting him and putting his brain in Ghorritch's body. But anyway, since it's already been done, I don't think the Khorne DLC would be very impactful or good. What the question for this is longer, but this interview's been going for a bit, so I'm just going to trim it down from Smalls. What would be in that DLC? What do the Skaven even need? We talked about Storm Fiends, Thankwall. Are we even missing anything else?
Vermin Lords, whatever that is.
Oh yeah, what are those? People keep bringing it up. I actually don't know what they are.
Those are just demons.
Yeah, so Skaven Mage successfully summons a demon into itself, mutates, transforms, and you get a Vermin Lord, which is kind of like a castery demon with magic powers. It's really strong. Or it's supposed to be. Other than that, I don't know. Like Skaven have so much that you can dip into. They have what is it? Infantry units that are eat undead, so they're kind of necrotic. They have that. There's so many things that Games Workshop has done with Skaven. You can pull any number of units and have room for more.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else, but I mean, as far as function in the roster goes, I like our infantry options. I think they're fine. Um, I would like a cheap, monstrous, like the wolf rats, but smaller. So I guess just like carnivorous regular rats, and make them like 200 gold and not very strong, like just faster Skaven slaves essentially, but could be fun for like chasing off routing units, give them stock or something. I don't know. That was just spitballing, but I know rat hordes were a thing on tabletop in some fashion.
I could see them implementing that as kind of unique summon for Vermin Lords. So like Vermin Lords have a bound rat swarm summon ability.
Mm-hmm. Just something less impressive than wolf rats, but still moldery. And last game 3 question from Jeremy would be, if you could name one good and one bad matchup against the game 3 factions, what would it be? Let's start with ChosenOne.
Well, we haven't seen half the factions from game 3, so that's pretty difficult.
Mm-hmm.
From what I saw, I believe that that Kislev might be a solid matchup, not that hard. It depends how good the Cathay Giselles will be, because if they are better than the Skaven ones, that sounds like a trouble to me.
But if they're worse, then Skaven has the advantage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Slanesh, because it's supposed to be very quick and very hard, heavy hitting, similar to Beastman. Maybe, hard to say.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think Kislev looks like dwarves with no or less artillery, and Skaven are going to like that. Even though they do have cavalry, but again, the artillery aspect is important, and Kislev doesn't have that on lock, really. As for hard, yeah, I guess thematically Slanesh, but we haven't seen that yet, so I might go with maybe Khorne can be kind of like a rush-heavy beastman. Yeah, they don't have ranged, but neither do counts, and that's hard. And I think Khorne will have at least, yeah, they have those skull cannons. They're good in melee, and the most important thing is, so the Khorne infantry, they have that Hellblade ability. The more unit models they kill, the stronger they'll get. Well, I mean, it's right there.
Oh, yeah.
They'll eat a bunch of Skaven slaves and become like a super-powered army of Khorne. So that's gonna throw a wrench into the Skaven plan.
Yeah, that'll be pretty bad. I would probably go Kislev is going to be easy, because I think they're also going to have low model counts, which Skaven are pretty good at sniping out individual models. And then if you can't resurrect them, I think they'll be good there. And I do think the description of Slanesh sounds really bad for Skaven, but I think all 4 of the Chaos factions sound pretty decent to Skaven. Maybe Tzeentch, not as much, because Howling Warpgill can take care of a lot of their like unique aspects, like, oh, we can fly. All right, we'll just shoot you down. But yeah, I think Nurgle could be tough because of what ChosenOne was saying about greenskins earlier. Nurgle's gonna do that shit all day to you. He's just gonna regen and sit with his monsters and wait for you to slowly die. And Khorne, as you just completely highlighted, is hard blitz with a lot of infantry that kill quickly. So I don't think Skaven are really going to enjoy any of the Dark Gods.
Better to work with them than against them.
Yeah. Okay. Still going. Oh god. Why are Plague Monks so OP? How should they be nerfed by CA? No gain, no gain, cry is free. I guess, that's obviously a hidden joke question, but Plague Monks, are they good, bad, great, terrible? Let's start with Hadres.
I think they're exceptionally meh, but you can take them. They have a bonus versus infantry. Like one Plague Monk unit isn't gonna like mess you up. It's not going to lose you the game, and it has some good killing power. So, like against Empire, it can kill their infantry very well. Mm, it's okay, but yeah, no, there's nothing really special about them.
Yeah, they are your average 750 infantry. For some reason, they are more elite than the High Elf version of this unit, being the Rangers. They are more elite than the Dark Elf version of the unit, being the Black Ark Corsairs. So
Oh.
they are okay. Not bad, but not great, not terrible.
Yeah. Dang, I don't think they would trade terribly into Black Orc Corsairs, though. Black Orc Corsairs have 80 armor. Oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. I'm not eagerly looking for that one. Um, what else on the roster can be nerfed by Loopy? Not a lot. Not a lot.
Just poison when globes.
Yeah.
Yep. Literally the only unit that really overperforms consistently.
Why are Triads secretly the most underrated unit on the Skaven roster? How do you use them? This is from Bowmore and Killing Smalls. I literally never use the Triads. They feel terrible, but...
Because they're hard to use. I do think they agree that they are a little underrated, but they are very hard to use.
Definitely. They are not bad, but you need to really babysit them to get them to the right engagements. And if they fight a cheap infantry like Marauders, it's bad for you.
Yeah, they can't be a frontline unit. They can't be anywhere near the front line. So, okay, here's a simple combo. You have a unit of wolf rats, right, with poison. You're running on the side of your opponent's army, like threatening to flank them. They send over a unit of Empire Knights to chase them off. You run away. You have a stealth unit of Eshin Triads. You run through the Eshin Triads. You pop. You have the concealment bombs popped so they won't see you. By the time they do see you, they're already charging through and not attacking the Eshin Triads because they're attacking the Wolf Rats. Eshin Triads cut them down. Wolf Rats run back, poison them, and they lose an Empire Knight unit for free with one little combo. It's the simplest thing you can do with them, and it's a little complicated. So, there.
Yeah. It's the simplest thing is that it's not really that simple.
Yeah, it sounds good, but there's just a lot of micro in it.
Yeah, but you do it, and that's how you use them. That's it.
I'm not saying it's not worth it. I'm just like, oh yeah, that would explain why I haven't been like, man, these units are amazing. It's like, man, you really gotta be on top of it with a plan. All right. Is it ever worth using normal ratlings over the ROR, real human being? I love the ROR. I would say no, because concealment bombs help against Spirit Leech Kite, but I'm curious of your thoughts. ChosenOne?
I agree.
No, there is. If you have to play Rattling Guns for some reason, you should play the ROR.
They're so good. They're so good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, probably the only matchup where I would really just use them is the Vampire Counts.
Yeah, I've used them against Lizardmen too.
Yeah, they Shrek Pterodons.
Yeah, I guess so. But you have to pick the ROR if you pick them.
So good. Concealment bombs on rattling guns, so good. Oh, I love them. They're my favorite unit in the whole roster. Is that? I feel like that was a question somewhere, but we might have already covered that. Anyway.
Yeah, we covered a lot. Are we at the end?
Sort of. There's a couple units left, and then there's memes. And I always save memes to the last because I know these things go forever, and I indicated you guys can leave whenever you want to. I am very good at handling meme questions. You have dedicated 2.5 hours already. All right. We'll get through the serious ones, then we'll see how you feel. Why are hell pits used so rarely these days? Real human being. Let's go with ChosenOne for this.
I think I've already said it because think in the current meta, it's very popular to just pick a couple of cheap skirmish units for lizardmen, like the little bastard skin javelins, and just for greenskins, the cheap skirmish guns, and everything is good against helmets. These cheap skirmish really hurt it.
That's exactly right. I mean, honestly, it costs a little more, but double chieftain at least has the speed and maneuverability to, position away from the skirmish units. The hell pit, once it starts fighting, it's just stuck in, and it's a big target that gets shot up. Its 30 melee defense means that the random chaff that accompanies all the cheap 20 stack builds is going to hurt it. The meta isn't right for the hell pit right now. It's still a good unit with a huge health pool, but yeah, that's mostly why. I'm not seeing it that much.
Yeah, I would agree. This one was asked by 4 different people, so clearly it's popular. There are so many units that are never seen on this roster. They have a lot of niches. Do warp fire throwers or the purple poison wind globes ever have a use? That is from Killing Smalls, Cyrus, Pugnabone, and Way. Hadres?
I feel like we talked about it already. Warp fire throwers have no use because they will, they're lost gold. They won't fire when you need them to. If they had an arc of fire, they'd be useful, but no, right now you shouldn't touch them. The purple globes, the death globes, are great at melting anything with armor, even cavalry, but also, yeah, just any infantry units. They're I do feel you almost get what you pay for. If Poison Wind Globes were slightly nerfed, I'd be more inclined to see Death Globes more often, because they have the damage. They have the damage for sure. So against Chaos, melting any infantry they bring, or heavy cavalry, yeah, just one unit of Death Globes can do good work.
Any additional thoughts, Mr. ChosenOne?
Just don't use them if you can use the Poison Wind Globadiers. They are just better. In every single way, almost. Almost.
All right. Is there a matchup where Avalanche Mortars are an auto-include? That's from Cuden. Hadres, you said they were good in the Wood Elf matchup. Anywhere else?
Seen them used to good effect versus Norska. Sometimes.
I like them versus High Elves because usually they're quite clustered up, and you can, if you get good RNG, you can just nuke an entire line of archers with one shot.
Yeah, I think I've seen them being used against Bretonia, but being an auto-include in any build,
I don't think so. Yeah,
I don't think so either.
ChosenOne, how would you decide whether to bring mortars or globadiers? From Cuden.
Globadiers are in general, the range is just not great. That's their biggest weakness. So if you expect that you will have to deal with infantry and stronger one, bring the Globadiers. If you expect that you will have to deal with archers, for example with High Elves, or maybe Bretonia, the peasant, you can't let them shoot all game, you need to bring the mortars. So depends on factions. Are you afraid of archers? If your answer is yes, bring the mortars.
All right. 4 more questions, and some of them are very quick. Are warp grinders good? Real human being? Let's have Hadres answer that one.
They're okay, but they have a glaring weakness. So if they route, terror route, or any of those, their ability stops. So what often happens is they're good if the opponent doesn't click on them. If the opponent clicks on them, and even if they have something snared and something hits them, they only have 45 leadership, they're going to rout, and then their ability stops. So that's rough. But their actual like powers are good. If you can keep them secure and use them effectively over the course of a long game, you can get good value. I think they, yeah, like have one and play with it and get good at using it for the over the course of a long game, and you'll have a good value unit. But otherwise, if you don't want to, you don't have to. They're not anything amazing.
For ChosenOne, Bowmore asks, what would you need to change about Plague Monk's sensor bearers to make them competitive instead of just being niche?
I don't think it's that terrible. They are one of the more solid units on the roster because they at least have the leadership to at least hold for a little bit. But their biggest problem is the Burning Hat, which is so often used against Skaven. So nerf the Burning Hat, please.
I agree.
And then probably a little bit of stats because you're paying 1050 and you have 29, 25. I know you get the Frenzy, but we've already talked about the Frenzy. So please give them a little bit more melee defense. They really die so quickly.
Gotcha. One more question for each of you. What models would you like to get a visual update? That is from Jeremy, and we'll ask ChosenOne this because the last question is Hadres specific.
Oh, I never thought about that. Maybe the Storm Vermin. They never really looked like anything special to me. But I don't think the Skaven aesthetic is something that should need to be upgraded.
It's already really good.
They're already perfect.
They look good, yeah.
Yeah. One of the best looking rosters in the game, in my opinion. All right. And then someone did ask, Cuden asked for Hadres, in what matchups do you prefer the Greyseer double Chieftain on Bonebreaker over other Lords and Heroes?
Definitely Bretonia. Let's see. You can do it into Empire. Any time you're worried about artillery, and it's not dwarves, I guess, but any time you're worried about some artillery position forcing you to move out, the Greyseer Plague with his Dreaded 13th is going to be good. As for double Bonebreaker, yeah, against Dark Elves, they can fight off Manticores. Like, the reason it's good is because it's just very solid combo. The two chieftains fight together well, they don't get in each other's way, and since they both have 410 weapon strength with Frenzy, they'll put out a decent amount of damage over a short period of time. And Greyseer Rune is just an overall good lord. But specific matchups, yeah, Bretonia, Empire possibly. Tomb Kings. You can do Tomb Kings.
All right. Well, you fine gentlemen have given me 2 hours and 40 minutes of your time. I have a bunch of meme questions I can answer on my own. I guess I should ask you these two questions because they are for you. From Flying Taco, who of us three should be the head rat? ChosenOne?
What?
Who of us three, you, me, and Hadres, should be the head rat?
I mean, probably Hadres, right? He won the...
If we all get fused together into a hell pit, I will take the head rat position. Although
right.
it'll still be horrifying and painful.
And then I also agree. And then Zero asks, what sub-faction has the best colors? For me, it's Eshin because I love black. I'm an emo kid at heart.
Yep, I'm an emo kid, nonconformist as can be.
Yeah, you'd be an emo kid too if you're just like me.
Ashen and Pestilence, yep.
Yeah. All right. The rest of these are silly nonsense that I will answer for the chat's amusement, but you both, thank you so much for doing this. This was very nice, and for me, it was really awesome because I was talking to Hadres about it before the interview. But I learned how to play Skaven watching both of your builds on Turin's channel, so it's really awesome to be able to talk to you guys. And it's like, hey, those are the guys. Those are the guys that made me play this. So that was awesome.
Yep, thanks for the invite, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me as well.
Oh.
It's always fun to talk about the best faction in the game. Well, almost.
There's a question in the chat for you that is actually a really good one. How did you get your names? Hammond is asking you. Hadres, what does Hadres even mean?
Well, Hadres has been my name forever. Since... Well, no, it used to be Wernick when I first started playing Left 4 Dead, but that was many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, Hadres has just been my online name for a while. It's what I went with when like Hades was taken in an MMO, right? So just added an R, Hadres. Ha ha ha.
All right. And ChosenOne?
Well, for me, I've never been really good at picking names. So when I started playing multiplayer, even just on ladder, I just needed some solid names. So I originally wanted to do like the Everchosen because back then I liked the Archeon a lot. Before Skaven even were introduced to the game. And since I found out there is some small tournament called the Everchosen, I thought it wouldn't be the best idea. So I kind of just like changed into the ChosenOne. And I also remember there was a small little thought about just getting to the Turin's channel and making him say the name, which turned out to be more hilarious than I expected. So yeah,
ChosenOne!
ChosenOne! All right. Thank you so much for your time, you guys, and you both take care.
All right. See you guys around. Peace.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. See you.
Those were the men, the myth, the legends themselves, ChosenOne and Hadres. I'm going to go through some meme questions real quick. I know you want me to ask your meme questions to the people. I did scroll through a couple of them, and I asked a few of them during this interview, but 2 hours and 40 minutes is a long time, and they do have stuff to do, so I saved some of the silly ones just to answer my own. Zero asks, who's the giant rat that makes all the rules throughout the unclean? If you've ever watched a Turin video, you know that that's true. Human Boy, why are you so good looking from Smalls? Warpstone, my friend. I consume a lot of it. What does Warpstone taste like? Real human being? It tastes like uranium. Tingly and warm. Are Skaven just hairy elves? Jeremy. Kinda, yeah. Yeah, we're backstabbing and shitty. Why has Real Human Being missed so many of the interviews? Real Human Being? I don't know. You're not here for this one either. Who did you backstab on your way to be a Skaven main? Chasing Rainbows? Wouldn't you like to know? Tee-hee. How do you get into playing as the Vermin? Cyrus. Ate a lot of cheese and kill my best friends. Why not have Human Boy's alternative personalities host as well? Cyrus. Because I control the channel and the power. All the power is mine. Real Human Being, is Throt or Solastra thicker? I think factually Solastra, but I guess by weight it would be Throt because Solastra is a ghost and doesn't weigh anything. So, eh. Chad's gave an interview, 3 hours. We're still going, Tiago, technically, but I'm powering through some of these. F&G, what is your favorite cheese? I don't know if that means build or literal cheese. Literal cheese, Colby. And build, you saw it on Rubber Duck of Wars stream, but I really like... This isn't going to price outright because I'm not taking off the items and stuff, but I like Packmaster... Warlord, Chieftain on a Bonebreaker, Eshin Sorcerer with the AoE invisibility, and then I take a shitload of Rat Ogres and Wolf Rats, and I sprint at them with an entirely invisible Molder army, and it's a very fun time for me. Not so much for my enemy. Does it work? Sometimes. Depends on who you're fighting, but not a lot. Zero, should White Lions get a bonus versus Skaven? Probably, because it's cats versus rats. Are Skaven just smaller, inferior beastmen? Zero? No, because beastmen have never invented anything. Once your beastmen invent miniguns, then come talk to me. Jeremy, you've been told you're supposed to simp for the Fey Enchantress, Ariel, Celestra Direfin, Isabella von Karstein, whatever is under Gelt's mask, and the River Troll Hag, but not Kalita and not Alariel. Who or what am I supposed to simp for in the Skaven roster? Icket Claw. Icket Claw! 3rd of 5, does anybody use Doom Wheels anymore? Yep. ChosenOne and Hadres mentioned that they occasionally use them in the interview. I'll add timestamps a little later, so it'll be easier to find that stuff. Why do Dowie mains continue to refuse that Skaven are just better Dowie, Malverde? Because Dowie are stubborn. I don't know if you've met them ever. Which kissing booth would you rather go make out with? A Plague Monk, a Skinwolf, a Chaos Mon, a Morngul Haunter, or a Vargeist? Jeremy. Oh boy. Probably a Skinwolf. Probably. That's the least terrible option. Are pigeons and seagulls flying rats? Yes, yes, says Hammond. No. Carrier pigeons are majestic creatures and don't deserve to be compared to rats. Seagulls, yes, fuck them. Should we feed Andy 11 to the wolf rats for saying the council guard are good? Yep. Murder him. That unit is terrible, despite the 2 Skaven experts saying it's decent. Who's the coolest person in Human Boy's Discord and can't be one of us 3? That's from Real Human Being. Probably Malverde. Why is it balanced that Queek can kill a 20 stack of Dread Saurians on his own? Real Human Being. Well, that's a secret. I prefer to keep that one close to the chest, otherwise they'll nerf Queek. Alright, last 2 questions that actually require some thought. Chasing Rainbows, using your in-depth chemistry knowledge, explain how the Poison Wind and Death Winds are different. Poison Wind probably has a bunch of fluorines in it. Probably a bunch of fluorine gas. No, that wasn't what I was thinking of. It has to be positively charged. Probably sodiums. Sodiums or hydrogen with 0 electrons to attach the oxygen. Where I'm going with this is a very, very positive charged thing to replace the bonds of oxygen. It's to break the O2 molecules that you're breathing in and, you know, the oxygen you're getting. It's to break up the O2 molecules and make everything in your lungs water. So slowly you start drowning on dry land. And that's why it takes some time. That would be my guess for those. And then for the purple ones, seeing how it's good against metal and against skin, and it kills you very quickly, it's probably a ridiculously corrosive acid that as soon as it hits you, it melts your flesh, and then you die from shock that way. Because that one wouldn't affect your lungs. That'd take too long for how quickly the purple globes kill you. Probably. All right. And I have a Discord notification. Is it important right now? Probably not, but I am honor bound to check these freaking things. Ah, it's Heir of Carthage. Gotcha. All right, last question from Killing Smalls. Can you show the type of boxes and wave style deployment you do? It's sometimes hard for me to deploy a Skaven because you're never confident on how big a box should be or how many reserve melee waves should be in the interior. Sure. So, it depends on matchup, depends on map. Obviously. Obviously. It depends on matchup and map. But let's load up a build and give you a general sense anyway. Skaven versus Warriors of Chaos. That's some infantry. Not the best example, though. I need more infantry to show what I want to show. Let's go Norse. Yeah, that's more like it. Put you on foot just to start the game. ChosenOne or Hadres might disagree, but there was no possible way to ask this question of all 3 people because we would all have to load into the game and all have to show you how we deploy our armies. So that's just not a feasible thing to do. But as for me, Warp Lightning's back there. Doesn't really matter because this isn't a real game, but you get the idea. All right, infantry. How to, what do? I prefer always setting up in a box type fashion in that every flank is slightly covered until you see where your enemies deploy. So I start by making a very thin line, usually leave clan rats until the edge or like the sides, not the front, because you're going to poison wind your entire front. You don't really want to do that to clan rats. You can, but you definitely want to do that to Skaven slaves first. So something like this. You have the thinnest of thin lines in your back margins just in case of... I mean, I can use my own wolf rats, but let's say these are Norskin dogs. Murph, I'll get to the chat. I'm just answering the questions. All right. If these were Norskin dogs, you just need your Skaven slaves to be here and clan rats just to catch them while you reorganize and deal with it, obviously. But when the game starts, if your micro is perfect, what you should do is assess the field of battle. And if you notice your opponent is going to heavily do one side over another, you can either rotate your whole box or these become your secondary wave. So you don't have to rotate your whole force. You could just rotate the stuff within it. You know, let's paintbrush off. Say that that is the case. I will rotate all my ranged assets to be like this. But then these guys, rather than defending for something looking here, what they actually become is my reinforcements to pull up and through the front lines. But you never, ever, ever, ever want to cluster too many units on the front line because your poison wind is just going to hit all of them. And an especially important thing that has to be noted is that when you throw a ranged projectile, your guys are going to predict where the unit will end up based on its speed. They won't protect it stopping. So if like wolves or skin wolves or cavalry is sprinting at your front line and you throw poison wind globes, they're probably also going to hit this unit because I've deployed them a little too close. In which case, something Skaven players, when they're newer, can really struggle with is putting their front line too close to their reserves, something like what you're watching right now. And then when the front line collapses together, poison wind globes are going to hit your secondary line and your main line. You're going to deteriorate your own forces twice as quickly. So that would be my thing, is personally, in a lot of matchups that you're going to be facing as Skaven, where there's Vanguard options, deploy in a rough box, front-loaded, but give yourself some backline, and use your backline as the reserves as you run up. Right. Probably always keep one Skaven slave behind your force in case of cavalry or something, but it's very matchup dependent. Anyway, rough ratio is front line 2 to back lines 1, and Skaven slaves always go first because they have the expendable trait. They don't reduce others' leadership. Whereas if you have clan rats first, when they rout, they're going to reduce your Skaven slaves' leadership by like 5, I think, and that's a 1/7 of their entire leadership, so that's bad. Skaven slaves first. Clan rats reinforce, etc. Anyway, that was that. All right, chat. What did you want? If interviews 40 minutes, Chad Skaven interviews 3 hours. ChosenOne's saying he's gone. I'm sorry your voice is weak, but thank you for dedicating it to the Skaven cause. It's funny how Skaven elite infantry fit in a niche. Storm Vermin's non-armored, armor-piercing unit. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, Jeffrey, that is pretty interesting. That Storm Vermin can shoot through like infinite chaff, but they can't do anything against armored stuff, and sensor bearers can actually kill armored stuff. Hummus Boy has the best content from Murph Alert. That sounds PWD, Poggy Woggy Doggy. Murph, you're an interesting soul. You have a very unique way of speaking words. And I was not ignoring chat, you silly. I was just busy. All right. That was a Skaven interview. We did it. I'm tired. How long did that go? Almost 3 hours. I think technically the greenskin one was slightly longer, but that's about it. I hope you all enjoyed that. That's all I got for you today. I will post a poll for the next faction we'll be interviewing, but then I gotta head off to the cities to visit some friends and play some board games, bro. All right, I'm heading out.